Hey friends, hope you're all doing well. We're doing okay too, just really tired since we've been working non-stop. We wanted to answer a question many of you ask: how does our publishing process work? Most of our audiobooks are first posted on Patreon as paid content. They stay behind a paywall for a few months. After that, they become free to access on Patreon forever. Then, a few weeks later, we upload them to other platforms like YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, X. Lately, our community hasn't been growing much, and we could really use your help. Please share our site in your Facebook groups, Discord servers, Reddit threads, Twitter, X, or with any friends who might be interested. Every little bit helps and we really appreciate it. Thanks a lot for being with us and supporting what we do. He might have agreed fast. Hueco nodded. That's no problem. I expected it. Here is the recent intelligence from the land of Earth. He handed over a scroll. Kleichi carefully examined it, focusing on a few names: Gari of the Explosion Corps, Onoki's son Kurotsuchi, and the Four Tails Jinchuriki, Rashi. They were all still in the land of Earth, nowhere near the front lines in the land of grass. After reading it, Kleichi handed the scroll back to Hueco. At this moment, Hueco finally asked, "You think allying with Hidden Sand Village won't work? Then what other options do we have?" Chapter 115. The small Shinobi Village Alliance plan: the northern part of the Land of Rivers and the western part of the Land of Rain. Those are your potential targets. Only after that should you look eastward to the Land of Grass, the Land of Waterfalls, and similar nations. Go west and annex those small countries? Hueco frowned. But annexing them would surely draw unwanted attention, wouldn't it? He was perplexed. Of course, you can't annex them. If you do, Hidden Sand Village and Hidden Stones Village won't let it slide. They'll come after you immediately. Kleichi explained. Hueco and Conan were even more confused. If annexing them wasn't an option. The western countries like the Land of Birds were all small, without even a single ninja village. They had no real power. Besides annexation, he couldn't think of any other method. Have you ever considered helping them establish their own ninja villages? Huh? Hueco was stunned. Help them build a ninja village? What good would that do? But at that moment, a flash of inspiration struck him, and he vaguely grasped something. Conan frowned and said, "If we don't help them build villages, Hidden Rain Village can still take a share of the surrounding missions. But if they have their own villages, won't we lose those missions entirely?" Missions? Hueco was momentarily taken aback, and then the flash of insight became clear. Yes, missions. These small countries didn't have their own ninja villages, so they had to take their commissions to the surrounding great nations. But if they had internal villages, the smaller tasks wouldn't need to be outsourced. However, with a small country's limited resources, they couldn't afford strong ninjas. Difficult missions would still have to be commissioned to external villages. At that point, wouldn't Hidden Rain Village, which helped establish these villages, be their first choice? Not like now. With no ninja villages of their own, most of those missions went to Hidden Sand Village and Hidden Stones Village, with little benefit to Hidden Rain Village. But would Hidden Sand Village and Hidden Stones Village agree to this? Of course not. But during this wartime chaos, it's the perfect chance for you to act. Kleichi said. Hidden Stones Village was preoccupied with war, and Hidden Sand Village, having suffered a defeat, was licking its wounds. As for Raza, he was probably off somewhere digging for gold. I understand your point completely now. First, help them establish ninja villages, then unite these small villages to form a coalition centered around Hidden Rain Village. Hueco clapped his hands in excitement. Right. Once that's achieved, even larger villages like the one in the Land of Grass might willingly join the alliance. And the southern part of the Land of Rivers would be Hidden Sand Village's compensation? Conan wasn't slow to catch on. Kleichi had only mentioned the northern part of the Land of Rivers, not the south. Clearly, Hidden Rain Village couldn't touch the southern part. That could only mean not just that. The Land of Wind lacks water, while your Land of Rain and the Land of Rivers have it in abundance. You could find ways to channel water to them. Besides, most of Hidden Leaf Village's missions are also concentrated in the southern part of the Land of Rivers. Kleichi explained. Hueco nodded repeatedly. The southern part of the Land of Rivers was relatively wealthy, with most missions from Hidden Sand Village and Hidden Leaf Village occurring in the south. Hidden Rain Village could not possibly take it all. Otherwise, they would face not only Hidden Stones Village and Hidden Sand Village but also Hidden Leaf Village. This plan, however, involved quietly supporting the small countries, linking them under Hidden Rain Village's leadership, and then negotiating for peace with the Land of Wind and the Land of Fire. That way, they would only need to face the Land of Earth. The more Hueco thought about it, the more he felt that Kleichi's plan was much better than his original idea of simply aligning with Hidden Sand Village. When I returned, I thought I understood your words, But now I realize I was still only half aware. Without your guidance, I might have made a huge mistake. Yahiko couldn't help but sigh. Thinking back, Hanzo's expression back then did seem a bit strange. Perhaps he also thought Yahiko's plan wasn't very reliable. However, Hanzo had still given him a chance to try. This moved him deeply. And, of course, there was also Koichi's subtle guidance. Conan hesitated, wanting to ask something but unsure if she should. Conan, if you have a question, just ask. After all, I did learn a bit of origami from you. I've got a big debt to repay. Koichi joked. At this time, Conan was truly beautiful. Conan clicked her tongue and then asked seriously, "You're helping us so much. Aren't you worried that if Hidden Rain Village grows strong, it could become a threat to Hidden Leaf Village? That's a concern for the future. Right now, all 4 great nations want to take us down. We need to recruit as many allies as we can." Koichi didn't hide his intentions. Besides, when a new force rises in the ninja world, it might actually help maintain a balanced and relatively peaceful state. A balanced and relatively peaceful state? As long as there are people, there will be conflict. Complete peace is unrealistic, unless there is an external force strong enough to dominate the entire world. Like, say, a powerful clan living on the moon. Koichi's tone was half joking. Yahiko fell into deep thought. The tangled thoughts in his mind began to unravel with Koichi's words. The land of earth, the land of wind, the small country alliance. The land of lightning, the land of water, the land of fire. Each side balanced and countered the other, possibly creating a more stable situation. He fully understood Koichi's vision. After figuring it out, Yahiko couldn't help but admire him. Your vision of peace is pragmatic and achievable. Unlike me, chasing an ideal of absolute peace that isn't realistic. Maybe. Right or wrong, you only know once you try. Truth comes from practice. Koichi smiled. Yahiko agreed wholeheartedly. He believed Hanzo thought the same. Without trying, ideals would always remain just ideals. Thank you so much. No need for that. By the way, Conan, I don't know how far you've developed your paper ninjutsu, but I have some ideas you might find useful. Koichi handed over a scroll. It contained all his knowledge on the dance of the Shikigami, as well as concepts for the divine paper jutsu and other applications. Though it was just a compilation of Conan's future jutsus, she likely hadn't fully mastered them at this stage. Conan opened it, and her face lit up with joy. Some of the jutsu aligned with her ideas but were far more refined. Especially the dance of the Shikigami. She was still in the experimental phase, and Koichi's scroll would save her a lot of trial and error. She bowed deeply, words unnecessary. Yahiko and Conan left, with a newfound sense of direction. Meanwhile, Koichi's shadow clone dispersed, and a flood of memories surged back into his mind, accompanied by a system prompt. Completed Small Country Alliance Policy Guidance, Evaluation, Excellent, Reward, Kenjutsu, San. Koichi smiled. To him, all he'd done was share his past life's insights, adapted to this world. But for Yahiko and his team, it was an invaluable strategy. If he had explained things in more detail, perhaps the evaluation would have been higher. Unfortunately, his previous life hadn't involved studying this sort of thing. There were 2 more notifications, and he continued reading. Yahiko views you as a life mentor, Conan views you as. Yahiko's reward was the analysis of Rain Tiger at Will Jutsu. Conan's reward was Paper Person of God. To be honest, he had expected Yahiko's reward to trigger, but he hadn't thought Conan would also acknowledge him. On further thought, it made sense. The most important people to Conan were Yahiko and Nagato. He had helped them, given her the ninjutsu scroll, and helped her improve her strength. Of course, she would feel immense gratitude and recognition. Unfortunately, Koichi couldn't teach his most advanced water-style jutsus. As for the simpler ones, Yahiko already knew them, so he could only offer a few casual pointers. I hope these 3 can hold their own. Koichi thought. For now, he wasn't ready to face Madara. And besides, if the alliance of the small nations succeeded, it could indeed stabilize the shinobi world, giving Hidden Leaf Village the breathing room it needed. But he feared that the Dragon Slayer might become the dragon. For now, things were still safe. As for the future, he believed his strength would not remain at its current level. With this thought, Koichi cleared his mind and focused entirely on his clone's memories. The intelligence on the land of Earth. The intel Yahiko had prepared detailed the current situation in the land of Earth, including partial military deployments. This must have been information from Hidden Rain Villages and Boo. Hanzo truly valued Yahiko. And it made sense. If he didn't value him, why would he allow Yahiko to execute a somewhat flawed plan? Hanzo was confident he could back him up, letting Yahiko stumble while ensuring he wouldn't truly fail. He was grooming Yahiko as his successor. After thinking for a moment, Daichi set a clear goal: first, infiltrate the land of Earth. He would gather intelligence while considering his next moves. After all, he had the freedom to make decisions on his own. As long as he avoided a few critical points, the risks wouldn't be too high. Owl, you can rest. I'll take the night watch. Why yes. Having received several new jutsus, he needed time to study them. How could he sleep now? Sun, Rain Tiger at Will Jutsu, and Paper Person of God. The third jutsu was the most valuable, but also the simplest. Since its application was straightforward, it required almost no effort to master, it was ready to use immediately. Sun wasn't too complicated either. But as for Rain Tiger at Will Jutsu, this one only provided the analysis of the principle. Even if he fully recreated and mastered it, its practical use wasn't that significant. After all, not every place had constant rain like the Land of Rain. Daichi understood this well. Its true value lay in its usage of chakra and sensory jutsus. Chapter 116, The best stealth is to kill everyone. If I use the hidden mist jutsu now, it should save me a lot of chakra. If I then focus on perception and counter-sensory jutsus, maybe I can combine them for even more effects. After a night of research, Daichi had gained quite a bit. The Rain Tiger at Will jutsu allowed chakra to permeate into raindrops. Nagato had spent years refining this jutsu to reduce chakra consumption, otherwise, even his reserves wouldn't sustain monitoring all of Hidden Rain Village. What Daichi valued most was precisely this efficiency. Sensory jutsu also held research value. But in the middle of a battlefield, this kind of research couldn't go too deep. It had to be set aside for later, when he had more time. As for the Paper Person of God jutsu, with a flick of his fingers, the explosive tags on his body flew out, gathering together and transforming into a smaller version of himself. At a glance, it was almost indistinguishable from the real thing. A very useful jutsu. Combined with the paper clone jutsu, it had excellent potential for surprise attacks. Unfortunately, explosive tags were too expensive. Otherwise, creating a paper clone entirely made of explosive tags would make them practically invincible. It was still dark outside. Daichi glanced around and clapped his hands. Wake up. It's time to move. Yes. Everyone instantly snapped to attention. They got up, quickly organized themselves, and followed Daichi northward. No one asked where they were going. They just followed orders. When they crossed into the Land of Earth, Gecko Hyate finally realized their location. The Land of Earth. A covert mission? He tightened his grip on his blade, his eyes scanning their surroundings with caution. Daichi looked toward the young Kohenata Mukai. Mukai understood immediately. He activated his Byakugan, scanned the area, and then shook his head. Move out. Whoosh. In a flash, the group dashed across the border. In mere moments, they had pushed deep into enemy territory, far from the border zone. That area was too dangerous. During wartime, borders were usually patrolled by scouting squads. But what baffled Gecko Hyate was that they hadn't encountered any enemies during their infiltration. He didn't quite understand. But, glancing at the dim sky, he had a thought. It seemed Daichi-sama had intel they weren't aware of. Now that we've broken through the front line, things should be a bit easier. Let's divide up the tasks. Daichi placed his hand on the ground, using his chakra sensory jutsu to monitor the surroundings. Then he turned to Hyate. Owl, take your team east. Stop when you reach a road, it's a route used by their logistics troops. Your task is to disrupt their supply lines. Use sealing scrolls to take away as many supplies as possible. Don't leave anything for Hidden Stones Village. Yes. When you attack, don't bother with disguises. Let them know it's the Anbu. Remember, only target the logistics ninja units. If you're unsure whether to attack, consult with Mukai. Daichi gave his instructions. Though Hyate was a bit puzzled, he still nodded. He looked at Mukai and Genma. He knew Genma's proficiency with sealing jutsus, but he wasn't aware of Mukai's sensory abilities. But he didn't dwell on it. After accepting his orders, he prepared to leave. However, after hesitating for a moment, he asked, Daichi-sama, how many times should we attack? If you can wipe them out in the first strike, then twice. If not, just once and then withdraw. Understood. Gecko Hyate had no more questions. He knew that Daichi must have reliable intelligence, and he could even guess the source. Hidden Rain Village. He hadn't expected. Daichi-sama even had connections in Hidden Rain Village, with access to such detailed information. He marveled at this as he led his team eastward. The remaining four, Daichi and his squad, stood quietly, waiting for the next instructions. This was what Daichi liked about them. They listened. They never asked unnecessary questions. If it were Obito or Naruto, they would have started pestering him by now. All that practice with the transformation jutsu will come in handy today. Kleichi finished speaking, formed a simple seal, and transformed into an Hidden Stones village shinobi. The outfit differed slightly from Hidden Leaf villages. Their flak jackets had only one sleeve, and their overall style was distinct from Hidden Leaf villages. Kurenai Yui was the first to complete her transformation. Flawless. The other two quickly followed. Most of their disguises were on point, with only a few minor details needing adjustment. "Sensei, are we going on a covert mission?" Asuma asked in a low voice. "Our objective isn't to engage in combat but to identify key enemy shinobi." Kleichi gave a brief explanation. The three immediately understood. Finding the key figures. Assassination. This was one of the specialized Anbu tactics drilled into them over the past 10 days. "From now on, we are all Hidden Stones Village in. My name is Maki. Come up with your own names." "Yes." They quickly thought of code names. Kleichi nodded, not too concerned. Typically, when shinobi squads met, only the name of the jonin was asked. His disguise as Maki was spot on. Of course. A fake Maki only had to worry about meeting the real one. But if they did meet, he'd just kill him. Kleichi wasn't too worried. He led his team toward the area where, according to intel, the enemy had gathered a significant number of shinobi. Asuma and the others were visibly tense. Their pace didn't falter, but their breathing was unsteady. Kleichi immediately reminded them to regulate it to avoid exposing their nerves. Youngsters, untested by real battle, were like that. Kleichi, on the other hand, remained utterly calm. By now, dawn had broken. The Hidden Stones village nin were in the midst of changing patrols, and Kleichi had already sensed a chakra presence nearby. "Sensei." Kurenai Yui whispered to alert him. "I know. Stay calm." Kleichi remained composed. If discovered, just kill them. Against the standard squad, he was confident he could wipe them out quickly. The best stealth was to leave no witnesses. He moved forward. "Kogan-sama, when will we attack the land of grass?" "Wait for orders." "I don't know either." Kogan shook his head. He was eager to launch an attack. According to intelligence, Hidden Clouds Village nin had already crossed the border and were directly engaging Hidden Leaf Village in the east. So, many in Hidden Stones Village wanted to press forward into Hidden Grass Village, rather than continue the current skirmishing and attrition with Hidden Leaf Village. This drawn-out style of combat played right into Hidden Leaf Village's hands, thanks to their exceptional medical capabilities. However, Kogan knew the higher-ups had their reasons. He refocused, pushing such thoughts aside. "Come on, let's patrol. I've heard Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Mist Village are no longer fighting. Hidden Leaf Village might reinforce this front." Humphrey, the 7 ninja swordsmen, a bunch of useless fools who couldn't even handle Hidden Leaf Village. He sneered, unaware that the 7 swordsmen had suffered a devastating defeat, with several of their swords now in Hidden Leaf Village's hands. But his disdain for Hidden Mist Village remained unaffected. As they were talking, 4 figures emerged from the forest ahead. The light was still dim, so he couldn't see clearly, but judging by their attire, it seemed to be Maki. "Maki, what are you doing here?" "I intercepted some intel. I need to report back." "Your voice? Something's wrong." The moment he heard the voice, Kogan sensed danger. This wasn't Maki's voice. However, in the next instant, a blade flashed, and 3 figures darted forward. Whoosh! The sound of wind. He recognized it, Hidden Leaf Village's sword jutsu, the dance of the crescent moon. From his sleeve, Kogan instantly ejected a blade, slashing forward while raising another to defend above. Clang! A crisp sound. Above. He was momentarily relieved, only to hear another sharp clang ahead, where someone was already weaving signs. The other Hidden Stones Village nin immediately sprang into action. A stone wall rose, blocking the 3 Hidden Leaf Village nin. But the next moment, a thick mist rose around them. In the dim morning light, they saw their enemies appear above them. "Watch out!" One Hidden Stones Village nin hardened his body with the Earth style, Earth Spear Jutsu and lunged at the Maki above. However, it was only air. Ungan Jutsu. A strange gurgling sound of a throat being slit came from below. Hino Hikari realized the danger. The enemy was strong, shockingly fast, and the mist-based Ganjutsu put them at a severe disadvantage. They had to retreat. He turned to flee. But after just one step, his instincts screamed danger. He raised his sleeve blade to defend. Boom! A terrifying force struck, accompanied by a gust of wind and a concentrated flow of wind-style chakra. How could he block such power? The sleeve blade was blasted away, embedding itself into his thigh. In the next moment, he saw a massive blade slice through the mist. He had heard of this weapon. The Executioner's blade. Fear gripped him. The enemy was too fast, there was no time to use a jutsu. He could only rely on his Earth Spear Jutsu and his remaining sleeve blade to defend. But in an instant, an overwhelming force crashed down again. The massive blade cut through everything, unstoppable. Clang. His sleeve blade shattered. This time, he wasn't so lucky. The shards drove into his neck. Then, with momentum still carrying forward, the great blade swept through his neck. Blood sprayed as the jagged blade slowly repaired itself, even mending its chipped edge. Elsewhere, Shishui and the others had completed their ambush. The Hidden Stones village Ninchunin couldn't hold out for long under the Hidden Mist Jutsu. Take their forms and clean up the scene. Kleichi used the Executioner's blade to absorb blood and meticulously handled the battlefield, looting all usable items. He glanced at the thunder sword in his hand, feeling a bit of lingering fear. Damn. He had nearly clashed directly with the sleeve blade using the thunder sword. Fortunately, he remembered how sharp the enemy's blade was and pulled back in time. Otherwise, the thunder sword might have been damaged. Thank goodness for the Executioner's blade. This thing was perfect for abuse. It could absorb blood to repair itself, and its weight, combined with the strength of 100 jutsu, made it nearly unstoppable. Few swordsmen could withstand it. Not even Kogen. Kleichi walked over and picked up the two swords. The material was good, sharp, durable, not quite chakra blades but still high quality. I'll hold on to these. I'll return them to you later. Thank you, sensei. Shishui didn't refuse. He knew his teacher was quite wealthy, not only lending him the thunder sword but also possessing 4 other ninja swords. Ordinary blades were of no value to him. Finally, Kleichi got a clear look at the enemy's face. This guy. Kogen? No wonder he recognized Maki. Kleichi cleared his throat, then imitated the man's voice. How do I sound? About 80% accurate. Asuma assessed. Good enough. Kurenai, you stay silent when we meet others. Yes. There were no Kanoichi, female ninja, here, so Kurenai had transformed into the appearance of a male ninja. However, her voice could easily give them away. But this time, Kleichi had also mimicked the voice, significantly reducing the chances of being exposed. Therefore, there was no need to worry too much. Chapter 117, The Hidden Mist Village are all useless. After the battle, Asuma and the others felt their tension melt away. A squad of Jonin. Didn't seem that hard after all. However, their confidence only lasted a moment. Kleichi took down 3, while the 3 of them only managed to kill 1. If there had been more enemies, they would have been in danger. In infiltration missions, expecting one-on-one fights was unrealistic. Besides, this time, they had the element of surprise. They made the enemy think Kleichi was using the dance of the crescent moon, but in reality, they had transformed into Kleichi's shadow clone. Only by this ruse could they eliminate the enemy swiftly. Of course, they had gone all out. By that measure, they could handle 1 or 2 squads without much trouble. Everyone now had a clearer understanding of their limits. Kogen-sama, where are we heading next? Asuma slipped into character quickly. This way. Kleichi made sure all traces of the battle were erased before leading the team forward. Normally, Kogen was supposed to be on patrol, but Kleichi wasn't really here to work for Hidden Stones village. His real target was a key figure in the village, Gari. This guy was a master of explosion style and a member of Hidden Stones village's elite explosion corps. If he made it to the battlefield in the Land of Grass, Hidden Leaf village's defenses would be in deep trouble. The Land of Grass could be breached directly, pushing the battlefront from the grass border to the fire border. According to intel, the explosion corps was just ahead. Using his sensory abilities, Kleichi detected 2 patrol squads heading toward the ambush site where he had sent Gecko Hyate and the others. He figured the front lines might already know about the attack on their supply unit. We need to pick up the pace. Kleichi urged. He had to hurry. If he was too late, the information might reach the enemy. Understood. The group accelerated. Their body flicker jutsu was decent, as long as they didn't hold back on chakra, their speed increased significantly. Before long, Kleichi sensed the temporary camp location that Hueco and the others had scouted. It was a valley surrounded by rocks, perfect for Hidden Stones village's ninja to either escape or set up ambushes. He probed the area for a while but couldn't confirm whether there were enemies hidden among the rocks. No choice. He had to take the risk. Worst case, he could unleash an Earthflow river, hit them with an AO attack, and then retreat. Ambush and assassination missions were inherently high risk. Besides, they had a fallback plan. If Gecko Hyate and his team succeeded, Hidden Stones village's patrols wouldn't be rushing in that direction. Let's go. Kleichi charged forward. The Hidden Stones village ninja noticed them quickly, and the formation in the camp subtly shifted. Clearly, they were still on guard. Kogen, why are you back? The lead ninja had a distinctive hairstyle, though not as eye-catching as Sakura's dad, still a clear indicator of his identity. Gari. The Explosion Corps' captain. Kletchi didn't flinch. He stepped forward and shouted, "Sir, we encountered a team of Hidden Leaf villages and Boo. I suspect Hidden Leaf village may have sent reinforcements, so I came to report." Hidden Leaf villages and Boo? Gari was shocked. This was within the land of Earth. How had Hidden Leaf villages on Boo infiltrated this far? He was alarmed, but still cautious. "Where did you encounter the enemy?" 3 kilometers ahead. "I believe they infiltrated from the border between the land of grass and the land of rain. It seems there's a gap in our patrols." Kletchi mixed truth with lies, remaining utterly calm. Behind him, Shishui and the others saw their teacher as steady as a mountain, and none of them showed any panic. "Come over here." Gari's vigilance ceased. However, Kletchi's report still left him deeply troubled. A gap in patrols. If there was a gap, it could only have occurred during a patrol handover. Otherwise, there was no way for the enemy to slip through. Kletchi moved closer. When he got close enough, he sensed faint chakra signatures within the rocks. A rough estimate, at least 7 or 8 squads. Clearly, there were many hidden stones village ninja here, and they were no pushovers. If a fight broke out, Kletchi himself wouldn't mind, but Asuma and the others might not make it out. Kletchi remained calm. As long as he wasn't exposed, all he had to do was wait for the frontline information to arrive. Gari continued, "Tell me exactly what happened." "Yes." Kletchi bowed his head and explained, "We were going to switch posts when we sensed an ambush. Though I countered and injured the enemy, it turned out Hidden Leaf Village had learned the Hidden Mist Jutsu." "What?" Gari was stunned for a moment. Hidden Mist Jutsu? Wasn't that Hidden Mist Village's signature jutsu? How had Hidden Leaf Village's ninja learned it? "Kogan, are you sure you didn't mistake it? How could Hidden Leaf Village's shinobi use the Hidden Mist Jutsu?" Unhidden Stones Village ninja questioned him. "It was the real deal, Mogura. No mistake. It was definitely the Hidden Mist Jutsu, and their swordsmanship seemed to be the dance of the crescent moon." Kletchi continued. He wasn't lying, they had indeed used the Hidden Mist Jutsu and the dance of the crescent moon. He had only tweaked the outcome slightly. The dance of the crescent moon. That must be the Gecko clan from Hidden Leaf Village. Their clan specializes in that swordsmanship. Now they've even learned the Hidden Mist Jutsu. This is bad. The Hidden Mist Village are all useless. Gari's composure crumbled. He paced back and forth, then said, "Hidden Leaf Village's eastern reinforcements have arrived. The front lines are in trouble. Mogura, take your team." He was about to send Mogura to deliver intel when a Hidden Stones Village ninja appeared and said, "Gari-sama, I've detected our patrol squad ahead." "What?" Gari was taken aback and immediately looked forward. Sure enough. Soon, a Chunin came running over. Kletchi remained calm, taking a step back with his group as Gari approached. "Gari-sama, bad news. Our supply unit was attacked. The enemy used a Hidden Mist Jutsu to cover their tracks. We couldn't catch up, and all the ninja tools, explosive tags, and food pills were stolen. Damn it. It's not just one Hidden Leaf Village squad." Gari was furious. He was fully convinced now, Hidden Leaf Village's Anbu squads had infiltrated the Land of Earth, and there was more than one team. More importantly, these squads might all know the Hidden Mist Jutsu. Internally, he cursed. Those fools in the Hidden Mist Village. Nobody expected them to do real damage to Hidden Leaf Village, but at the very least, they were supposed to tie down some of Hidden Leaf Village's forces. And yet, no Uchiha in sight, but everyone else had shown up here, and they'd even learned the Hidden Mist Jutsu. Useless. He took a deep breath. "Mogura, Oishi, Kogan, take your squads to the front lines. Deliver the intel and monitor the surroundings to prevent further infiltration by Hidden Leaf Villages and Boo." "Yes." "Fuma, you take your squad to the main camp and report the situation." "Yes." Kletchi was resigned. Unexpected developments always happened. He had hoped to stay close, to get a chance to approach Gari or for Gari to lead a support team. Either way, he'd have an opportunity. Instead, none of that happened, and he was sent away. Luckily, he hadn't revealed any critical information. The Hidden Mist Jutsu. When the supply squad was ambushed, it was bound to be exposed anyway. It wasn't vital intel. As for Hidden Leaf Village's reinforcements and troop movements, they couldn't be hidden for long. He followed Mogura's team, heading to the front lines. Good things never come easy. At the very least, this operation had confirmed Gari's location, and there was even a chance to eliminate these 2 squads. That was already quite an achievement. He pressed forward. After running some distance, as they approached the target area, Kletchi suddenly felt a sense of danger. In the next instant, his skin turned pitch black, and his hands rapidly formed seals. A Earth-style mud wall shot up, isolating the squad behind him. Mogura's blade struck Bleach's body, but it didn't make a dent. It couldn't penetrate any further. Mogura quickly pulled back. A loud explosion followed from behind. The earth wall had been shattered by enemy ninjutsu, and beneath Shisui and the others, sharp stone spikes erupted from the ground. However, the three had already used substitution jutsu, repositioning to a safer spot. Bleach sighed. They'd been exposed. These two were too familiar with the Firelight Squad. It was likely that someone in their team had revealed a flaw through some small detail on the road. He and Shisui's group stepped out of the combat zone, facing off against the enemy. You know, if you hadn't realized, you might have lived a bit longer. You're from Hidden Leaf Village, aren't you? I knew something was wrong with those three Chunin. It seems Kogen and the others are already dead. Mogura gripped his blade, his face grim. Mogura-sama. Fire the signal flare. Understood. Bleach had to admit, the Hidden Stones Village Nin were highly trained. Instead of exposing him immediately, Mogura and Oishi had opted to try and ambush them. Had he not reacted quickly enough, Shisui and the others might have suffered a serious sneak attack. However, did they really think they'd get to launch that signal flare? Bleach's eyes narrowed. In the next instant, his aura shifted. With a flick of his fingers, countless paper scraps flew out, forming a paper shield that covered the sky. The signal flare shot up, only to be blocked by the paper shield. Then, amid the vibrant flare light, a few paper tags closed in on Mogura's squad. Watch out! Boom! A violent explosion erupted. Explosive tags. However, the Earth-style barrier managed to block the blast. Meanwhile, Oishi's squad charged toward Shisui and his group. Bleach glanced over but didn't immediately assist. He wasn't their babysitter. They had to learn to handle such situations on their own. As for Mogura's team, Bleach smirked. His hands formed seals, and the ground beneath quickly turned to a muddy swamp. Frost spread from under his feet, and within less than a second, the swamp froze into permafrost. After the explosion, the Earth-style defenses collapsed. Mogura and his team found themselves stuck in the swamp. Worse yet, the frost had solidified the ground, making it far more difficult for them to escape using Earth-style jutsus. And then... ah! A blood-curdling scream rang out. One of the four ninjas let out a harrowing cry. An ice spike from beneath the ground had pierced through his body. He was the only one on the team who hadn't mastered Earth Spear Jutsu. Mogura panicked. While the others managed to use the Earth Spear Jutsu to barely fend off the ice spikes, they needed to break free of the frozen ground. Otherwise, they'd been nothing but fish on a chopping block. He pushed his chakra output to the limit. However, just then, the sword came, a blade crackling with lightning energy pierced through his Earth Spear and ran straight through his neck. As for the remaining two, frost had already spread over their bodies. They struggled desperately, but with a third of their bodies frozen in the ground, they simply couldn't muster the strength to break free. Chapter 118, 2 against 1 and still got killed? On the other side, Asuma and his team were facing a squad, and not just any squad, but one led by a Jonin. The pressure was immense. So, the very first moment, Asuma took a deep breath and activated his breath activation jutsu. The next second, Shisui. He barely had to say it, before his words were even finished, a fireball had already been launched, and Asuma followed up with a great breakthrough. Flames engulfed the area ahead. In an instant, they withdrew their chakra, and then... body flicker jutsu, switching positions. The ground beneath them roared, and the entire section of earth exploded. 3 Hidden Stones Village Nin emerged from underground. If they hadn't moved quickly, they might have been buried under rock and soil. They had learned a lot recently, and one crucial lesson was, never underestimate the enemy's intelligence. Jutsus like the Great Fireball usually weren't meant to kill, because it made too much noise. But this time, their goal wasn't to hurt anyone, it was to force the Hidden Stones Village Nin to use Earth style. In the next instant, Shisui appeared right in front of them, his eyes blood red, the Tomui spinning. Ganjutsu. Asuma gripped his trench knives tightly and charged at the trio. Of course. They hadn't forgotten, there was still one more person to deal with. Oishi. The Jonin. Where was he now? Kurenai focused all her attention, pushing her perception and observation to their absolute limits, but she couldn't detect a trace of him. However, the next moment, Shisui suddenly threw a string of shuriken. A faint breath gave away his position. Kurenai's hair stood on end, the enemy was dangerously close, almost right beside her. But, until just now, she hadn't sensed him at all. There was no time to think, Oishi's kunai was already coming at her. He was fast. So fast that she didn't even have time to punch or kick back, She could only escape with a substitution jutsu. The Jonin's strength far exceeded her expectations, and her plan to catch him off guard with brute strength had failed. Shisui was also breaking into a cold sweat. If not for his Sharingan, which had noticed a subtle anomaly in that area, he would never have spotted the enemy. If Oishi had gotten any closer, Kurenai would have been in real danger. For just a moment, his focus on Oishi wavered, and the three Chunin broke free of his Genjutsu, dodging vital strikes just in time. With their Earth Spear Jutsu, they managed to avoid serious injury from Asuma's flying swallow. To them, being tricked by three kids was just as much a humiliation. But at that moment, they also noticed the situation with the other squad. All dead? How could it be so fast? Oishi's heart sank. He turned and saw the icy landscape, a chill running through his bones. Ice style. Had even this jutsu been stolen by the Hidden Mist Village? Damn it, those Hidden Mist Village shinobi are real trash. He cursed them internally. But now, cursing the Hidden Mist Village's incompetence was pointless. What mattered was getting out of here alive. He felt a strong urge to retreat and a pang of regret. If only they'd gone back for reinforcements, why bother with this plan to ambush with Mogura? He used his camouflage jutsu, blending into the surroundings, and fled toward the camp. Sensei. He won't get away. Kletchi made a single hand sign, and a thick mist rolled in. The camouflage jutsu could deceive vision and hide his presence, but it couldn't obscure him in the mist. In the fog, his location became completely exposed. Oishi realized this too. He immediately switched jutsus, using hiding like a mole jutsu to dive underground. However, he hadn't gotten far. Boom. A thunderous explosion. Kletchi's fist struck the ground ahead of him, creating a massive crater. Oishi had stopped abruptly. If he hadn't, that single punch could have cost him his life. But before he could breathe a sigh of relief, Kletchi's left hand drew his blade. Oishi quickly formed seals, using Earth Shore Return to block some of the force, then retreated back into the tunnel. Kletchi sighed. This was why he didn't want to come to the land of Earth. These Hidden Stones village nin were just too good at hiding, defensively skilled and far harder to kill than the shinobi from the Hidden Mist Village. Of course. Mainly because he didn't know any lightning style. What a hassle. Kletchi had no patience for playing hide-and-seek. Using Earth-style chakra, he helped maintain the tunnel, then sent two paper bombs transformed into small birds fluttering inside. Oishi's face filled with terror. Normally, the tunnel created by hiding like a mole jutsu would collapse into soft soil and rubble once he withdrew the jutsu. But Kletchi's jutsu had kept the passage open. The two paper bombs flew through the tunnel toward him. It was too narrow, there was no room to dodge. As the paper bombs approached, the earth and stones began to collapse around him. And then, boom. A massive explosion flipped the ground over. Beneath the shattered rubble lay Oishi's body. He wasn't dead yet, seemingly trying to use a jutsu to escape. But in the next instant, Kletchi dashed over and stomped down hard. Heavenly foot of pain. The tremendous force caused the ground to cave in. At the center, Oishi's chest was crushed, the power penetrated through, shattering his heart. Still not satisfied, Kletchi drew his executioner's blade and delivered a final blow. Now he was sure. He slung the blade over his shoulder and headed toward Asuma and the others. There was no need to rush, Gekko Hyate and his team had already arrived. Otherwise, Kletchi wouldn't have dealt with Oishi so leisurely. He would have left a shadow clone to ensure the trio's safety. When he got there, the three Chunin had already been taken care of by the combined efforts of Gekko Hyate and Shishui's team. Shishui was utterly exhausted. Though they were just Chunin, Hidden Stones Village's Chunin were undeniably strong. With all sorts of survival and escape jutsus, defeating them was easy, but killing them was incredibly difficult. He took a few deep breaths. Seeing Kletchi return, he felt a wave of fatigue wash over him. His chakra was almost completely drained. Shishui, eat a military ration pill to recover some stamina. Shishui nodded, taking the pill from Kurenai's hand. Kletchi approached, using his executioner's blade to execute the two Chunin who were still frozen in ice. He glanced at Shishui, he was in no condition to use fire style. Thankfully, Asuma and Saratobe Hiraki both knew fire style. You two, clean up the area quickly. The enemy reinforcements could arrive soon. Yes. Everyone was surprised. This was clearly ice style, KK Genkai of the Yuki clan from the Land of Water. How had Kletchi learned it? But there was no time for astonishment. Right now, the priority was erasing the evidence. Kohenata Mukai activated his Byakugan, scanning the surroundings. He quickly reported, Sensei, the enemy reinforcements are coming. There are 3 squads. Should we engage? Retreat. Kletchi surveyed the situation. Shishui was out of chakra, And Asuma and Kurenai were not in great shape either. Though Gekko Hyate and his team seemed fine, after multiple battles, their chakra reserves were likely running low. If they continued, they might get surrounded. He had no intention of testing a blossoming from the center strategy. Besides, given their state and the location of the main Hidden Leaf village forces, they had no hope of achieving that. Once the cleanup was mostly done, they withdrew swiftly. A long while after they had left, Gari arrived with his men. Clearing the thick mist had taken some time, otherwise, they could have gotten there sooner. However, seeing the aftermath, Gari nearly coughed up blood in rage. Though he couldn't discern the exact details, judging by the corpses, it was clear what had happened. The Kagari squad was a complete fake. Fuma, any survivors? Sir, they're all dead. The scene was tampered with. I can't make much sense of it. Fuma responded. Gari took a deep breath and moved to the first battlefield. This area was scorched earth, with most combat traces burned away by flames. He examined the remaining signs for a long time, piecing things together. Seems Mogura and Oishi discovered the enemy's disguise, attempted to eliminate the squad together, but failed. Or perhaps, the enemy held out until reinforcements arrived. He added the last part on the fly. He could tell Mogura's team had been wiped out by a single person. The exact cause of death was unclear. But it definitely wasn't fire style. 2 against 1, and they still got wiped out. But, from the traces left, he had to admit, the enemy was very strong. Gari-sama, it looks like Oishi died from a terrifying force, possibly Tsunoda's monstrous strength. Could it be her? Absolutely not. Besides, the enemy seemed to have only 2 squads. Gari shook his head. If there had been 3 squads, he suspected they would have set up an ambush instead of retreating. 2 squads had dared to venture deep into enemy territory and launch consecutive ambushes on Hidden Stone's village's shinobi. Such audacity. He combed through the information on Hidden Leaf village for a long time, his expression turning strange. Could it have been Tsunoda leading an ambush squad personally? No, that didn't add up. Something must have happened in the east that we don't know about. We need to find out. Also, send someone to search for Kagari, even if it's just their bodies. Gari's headache worsened. Had the Hidden Mist village suffered such a crushing defeat that their hiding in mist jutsu had been stolen? Whoever this person was, the Hidden Mist village surely knew. They had to obtain intelligence from the Eastern Front, otherwise, they would be at a severe disadvantage against Hidden Leaf village. On the way back, everyone was silent. There was fatigue, but also shock. Ice style. KK Genkai of the Yuki clan from the Hidden Mist village, Tletchi had even mastered that. Unbelievable. They rushed onward. Tletchi glanced at Shisui, then at Kohenata Mukai. Mukai understood. He activated his Byakugan and scanned the surroundings. No one nearby. Tletchi flickered to Shisui's side, placing a hand on his forehead. The next moment, chakra gently flowed from his palm into Shisui's body, gradually converting into physical and mental energy. After a minute or two, Tletchi stopped, took a military ration pill, and said, "Let's move." This. Shisui was stunned. His mental energy had recovered a bit. Not much, but at least he no longer felt drowsy or a burden to the group. They set off again. Instead of retracing their steps, they threaded through the gap they had torn in the enemy lines, returning to the land of grass. Hidden Stone's village had wanted to send scouts out, but, with Hidden Leaf village on the offensive, they had no manpower for it. In just a few minutes, Tletchi and his team escaped the land of earth and returned to safety in the land of grass. Finally, Kurenai asked, "Sensei, what kind of medical ninjutsu was that earlier? I've never seen it before." "It wasn't medical ninjutsu. I reversed my chakra absorption jutsu to transfer my own chakra, converting it into physical and mental energy," Tletchi explained. This jutsu currently had a very low conversion rate, only about 10% of the chakra transferred was effectively converted, making it an incomplete jutsu. "Tletchi-sama, about what we saw earlier. Should we just pretend we didn't see it?" Gekko Hyate asked quietly. Chapter 119, Swallowing 2 squads with tears. You didn't see anything. Just an unintended side result of my research on wood style. It's not fully developed yet and needs further refinement. Tletchi shook his head. Since he had already used the jutsu, he was fully prepared for any consequences. He didn't need Gekko Hyate to cover for him. On the other hand, Kohenata Mukai simply smiled. This battle went well for everyone. There's no need to report every little thing when it comes to our own people. Tsunoda-sama and I are already aware. Understood. Gekko Hyate and the others stood at attention. Asuma, of course, did the same. Though Asuma hadn't even considered Mukai, he thought Tletchi was referring to Shisui's Sharingan. But Gekko Hyate was different. Having been in Anbu for years, he instantly understood what was going on with Mukai. The Byakugan. A branch family that had separated for 3 or 4 generations had somehow awakened the Byakugan again. If this was reported, the Hyuga clan would go crazy. If it had been in the past, Gekko Hyate might have hesitated. The consequences of such a revelation were unpredictable. However, Tsunade was about to become the 4th Hokage, and Koichi had done a great service to the Gekko clan. If they could help, they would. As for the other two, Shiranui Genma naturally agreed. Mukai had helped him a lot and even saved his life. There was no reason not to protect a comrade who had fought alongside him. Sarutobi Hiraki hesitated for a moment. He was from the Sarutobi clan, after all. Don't worry. I'll explain this to the 3rd Hokage and the Hyuga clan later. The secrecy is only temporary. Understood. Sarutobi Hiraki lowered his head. Asuma had a strange look on his face. He had thought they were talking about Shizue's Sharingan, but after watching for a while, it seemed like this was about the masked Anbu ninja instead. Fighting Hidden Stone's village is such a hassle. They have too many survival jutsus, making them extremely difficult to kill. It's not like Hidden Mist Village, where you kill one with each strike. Koichi rubbed his temples. Gekko Hyate nodded in agreement and began explaining their side of the battle. They had only managed to eliminate one squad. Just as Koichi had said, Hidden Stone's village nin were incredibly difficult to deal with. They had countless defensive jutsus. Their first ambush hadn't taken out the entire team, and the survivors had launched a signal flare. If not for Sarutobi Hiraki catching them off guard with Earth Spear, they might have been delayed even longer. In the end, they managed to take down one squad before retreating with their supplies. Koichi didn't blame them. His own situation had been full of unexpected twists as well. The enemies under Gari's command were far stronger than expected, and Koichi hadn't planned to leave his position to support the others. But then, Gari had been sent to deal with Gekko Hyate's squad. Originally, he had planned to ambush and eliminate Karu, but their cover was blown on the way. It was clear from the quality of Hidden Stone's village's Jonin, their village was far stronger than Hidden Mist Village. Still, this battle had been a major victory. They had taken out 4 Jonin-led squads, all composed of at least Chunin-level shinobi. These were undoubtedly elite teams. And their own squad had taken no casualties. This was already an outstanding achievement. Since their mission was guerrilla warfare, not an assassination on the enemy command, any gain was a good one. Let's go back and rest. Sensei, are you sure such a short amount of time is enough? It's enough for them to escape. The 3rd Hokage nodded. He wasn't sure what had happened over there, but he was certain Koichi had made his move. Jiraiya was still worried. After all, they were in a land of Earth. Hidden Stone's village nin weren't pushovers. If Koichi's team got surrounded, it would be dangerous. If anything happened to Koichi, Tsunade would kill him. Jiraiya paced anxiously, feeling uneasy. Just as he was hesitating, a commotion erupted outside. He immediately ran out, and then let out a relieved sigh. They were back. All of them. Good, good, you're all back. You little punk. Do you think you're some kind of invincible warrior? What if you ran into Anoki or a Jinchuriki? Jiraiya stormed over to Koichi and smacked him hard on the shoulder. Koichi coughed. Jiraiya, if I didn't die at the hands of Hidden Stone's village nin, I might die from your beatings. Don't be ridiculous. Jiraiya rolled his eyes. Seeing Koichi back safe, he was relieved. Then he asked about the battle results. Gekko Hyate and the others left to report to Sarutobi Shinosuke. Only Koichi and Azuma's group remained. Koichi told them to rest, then entered the tent to discuss the mission. Jiraiya listened carefully. Then he took a sharp breath. Damn. This kid had been dancing on a razor's edge. If their cover had been blown a moment earlier, they would have been surrounded by a swarm of Hidden Stone's village nin. Only an absolute madman would attempt something like this. Jiraiya's heart pounded. But then, something felt off. Koichi's intel was too precise. The way he infiltrated their ranks and immediately exploited their weaknesses, it was as if he had planned for this exact situation. Jiraiya didn't call him out on it. He simply nodded along. They've reinforced the front lines a lot. That area really wasn't patrolled much. That Gari was too cautious. Originally, I planned to separate him from his men and take him out, but he assigned me elsewhere. So, in the end, I could only take down 2 squads. Koichi sighed. Tears were shed as he killed 2 squads. That was the truth. If Gari had given him the chance, he wouldn't have settled for just 2. The 3rd Hokage nodded. This was already a significant victory. Eliminating 4 elite squads means fewer Hidden Leaf Village ninja will die. Exactly. Jiraiya agreed. 7 or 8 squads. Even Jiraiya himself wouldn't have dared to mess with such a base. Koichi not only went in but got out alive, that was impressive. Hidden Stone's village nin are far tougher to kill than Hidden Mist Village nin. The Hidden Mist Village mainly relies on the Hidden Mist Jutsu, Mist Body Flicker, and water formation walls. Annoying, but manageable. But Hidden Stones Village in. Kleichi sighed. Now he knew how Hidden Mist Village ninja must have felt fighting him. Tanks. Unkillable tanks. Luckily, he had Raiden's blade and the Executioner's blade. Otherwise, those Earth-style defenses would have been a nightmare. The third Hokage sighed as well. Hidden Stones Village nin were tricky, but there weren't many lightning-style users in Hidden Leaf Village. After discussing things further, Kleichi left the tent. He hadn't slept for an entire day and night. However, someone was still following him. Kleichi. Kleichi. Jiraiya jogged up with a big grin. Kleichi stopped. Jiraiya leaned in and whispered, Kleichi. That intel, did you get it from Hidden Rain Village? Kleichi nodded slightly. Are they doing okay? You never went to check on them. Jiraiya sighed and nodded. Kleichi was surprised. Jiraiya had been in the north for over half a year, mere miles away from Hueco and the others, yet he never went to see them. For a moment, Kleichi didn't know what to say. After a long silence, he finally said, they're doing well. Hanzo appreciates them and treats them like his own disciples. That's good. That's good. Sigh. Jiraiya sighed deeply. He had been too busy gathering intel on Hidden Stones Village and Hidden Clouds Village. By the time he heard Hueco and the others had joined Hanzo, he figured there was no need to visit them. Still, he worried. Don't overthink it. Maybe they really will change the world. Kleichi turned away. If you don't need anything else, let me sleep. Aren't you going to eat first? I'll eat after I wake up. Meanwhile, in the land of Earth, Onoki received the intel, and for a moment, he was completely numb. 4 elite squads. Just gone? And worse still, a whole batch of ninja tools, explosive tags, and ration pills had been lost, now in Hidden Leaf Village's hands. Eventually, those very supplies would be used against Hidden Stones Village's own forces. Could anything be more infuriating? Even with his usual composure and strength, Onoki was so enraged that he started coughing violently. They used a hiding in the mist jutsu. What does Hidden Mist Village have to say about that? According to them, some of their people were captured, leading to the leak of their jutsu information. Kitsuchi reported from the side. Onoki's expression darkened. Leaked? Who were they trying to fool? Everyone knew Hidden Mist Village's ironclad rule: if capture was inevitable, they'd eliminate their own comrades before taking their own lives. They'd never let their jutsus fall into enemy hands. For years, the other villages had barely managed to capture any Hidden Mist Village ninja alive. But now, against Hidden Leaf Village, they just happened to get caught. And conveniently had their jutsus stolen? Yeah, right. There's more. According to Crew's report, the wounds on Hueco and the others look like they were inflicted by a large blade. Something similar to Hidden Mist Village's Executioner's blade. Kitsuchi continued his briefing. Onoki froze. That's one of the 7 ninja swordsman's weapons, isn't it? That's why it's just a suspicion for now, no solid evidence. Kitsuchi nodded. Onoki sat there in deep thought for a long while before suddenly sitting upright. Tell me, is it possible that the ones who got captured were the 7 ninja swordsmen themselves? The 7 ninja swordsmen? Kitsuchi was stunned by his father's speculation, but then immediately found it hard to believe. The 7 ninja swordsmen. They were Hidden Mist Village's top-tier specialists, elite assassins groomed for years. And from what they knew, not a single member of the legendary Sannin had gone east. Hidden Leaf Village had only sent a few relatively unknown ninjas. Could that kind of lineup really take down the 7 ninja swordsmen? They'd have to be complete fools for that to happen. Just as they were struggling to make sense of things, a messenger ran in from outside. Tsuchikage-sama. We've received an encrypted message from Hidden Mist Village's Anbu. Give it to me. Onoki immediately rushed forward and grabbed the scroll. They had spent the entire day hunting down Hidden Mist Village's Anbu units within the Land of Earth, killing several of them in the process. Finally, they had forced Hidden Mist Village to send over some intelligence. He quickly unrolled the scroll, only to find a brief summary inside. Hidden Leaf Village has someone incredibly powerful. He has completely disrupted all of our strategic operations. And that was it. What kind of half-assed report was this? Onoki tore the paper into shreds, then took a deep breath before turning to Kitsuchi. Send a team to negotiate with Hidden Mist Village. Find out what they want. Understood. Whoever Hidden Leaf Village had, they weren't following the usual patterns. Based on Hidden Mist Village's intel, Onoki had every reason to suspect that the 7 ninja swordsmen really had been wiped out by Hidden Leaf Village's forces. And if that was true, then Hidden Stones Village would have to pay the price for that information. Otherwise, far more Hidden Stones Village ninjas would have to die before they could figure out who this person really was. Chapter 120, The telescope jutsu, do I look like that kind of person? Kleichi had a great night's sleep. There was no proper bed, but lying here was still much more comfortable than sleeping in the wild. The next morning as he got up and wandered around the camp, he saw that Shizui and the others had already begun training. Meanwhile, Gecko Hyate and his team had gone out again, likely heading to the front lines for another mission or taking advantage of the situation to scavenge some supplies. That squad had tasted battle a few days ago, and now they seemed to be addicted to it. Kleichi didn't bother stopping them. With their strength, they were more than capable of hunting on the battlefield. As long as they didn't get greedy, they wouldn't run into too much trouble. What interested him more was something else entirely. Jonin Kleichi, Lord Third requests your presence. Thank you. Kleichi nodded and lifted the tent flap to step inside. Inside the tent, Hiruzen Sarutobi and Jiraiya were deep in discussion. Right now, Hiruzen was in the middle of handing over command to Jiraiya. Kleichi moved to the side, not wanting to interrupt, while the two continued their conversation, exchanging intel and discussing the state of the camp. Hiruzen listened carefully, nodding along as Jiraiya laid out his arrangements. Jiraiya's deployment strategy wasn't necessarily bad. His idea was to engage Hidden Stone's village in a defensive battle. But was that really the right call? Did Hidden Leaf Village stand a chance against Hidden Stone's village in a direct siege? Hiruzen didn't think so. Kleichi, what do you think? Kleichi snapped out of his thoughts to find both men looking at him. He was confused. Had he made some kind of face without realizing it? You always have unique insights. Your strategy in the Eastern Front was excellent. Without you, we'd likely still be fighting Hidden Mist Village even now. So don't hold back. Share your thoughts. Of course, Hiruzen had no idea what Kleichi had really been thinking just now. He simply felt that Kleichi might have a different perspective. After all, whether it was during his time at the academy or his role in the Eastern campaign, Kleichi had consistently demonstrated an ability to think outside the box. Maybe he could offer an alternative battle strategy here as well. Jiraiya, worried Kleichi might hesitate, added, my plan isn't perfect. We're fighting on two fronts, so the pressure is huge. My idea isn't exactly well thought out, so I'm not sure if it's right. Kleichi wasn't entirely confident. He wasn't a military strategist. If he had a foolproof plan, he would have spoken up already. But now, with Hiruzen and Jiraiya both staring at him expectantly, he had no choice but to step up. After thinking for a moment, he said, I don't think we should engage Hidden Stone's village in a defensive war. Their jutsu make them far too strong in both fortification and siege warfare. In the anime, it never seemed like that big of a deal, but after experiencing it firsthand, Kleichi had came to fully appreciate just how dominant Hidden Stone's village was in static battles. Their defenses included jutsus like Earth-style wall and Earth-style rampart, and, unlike Hidden Leaf Village, where only a few specialized in Earth-style, every Hidden Stone's village ninja could use these jutsus. As for offense, mountain jutsu, moving earth core, powerful jutsus that could completely wreck Hidden Leaf Village's defenses. Not to mention the explosion core. So, engaging Hidden Stone's village in a war of attrition would be playing right into their strengths. We know that too. But if we don't hold the line, do we just abandon this front? Hiruzen and Jiraiya weren't blind to these issues. But the problem was, the Land of Grass was an ally. If Hidden Leaf Village withdrew, Hidden Stone's village would sweep through and push straight into the Land of Fire's borders. At that point, would they just abandon those lands as well? That wasn't an option. We could wage a war of mobility instead, lure the Hidden Stone's village forces forward, stretch out their supply lines, and then strike at their weak points. We could even mobilize forces from the east to take out their vanguard first. Kleichi suggested. It wasn't a particularly original strategy, he was just borrowing tactics from history. Hiruzen frowned deeply. Mobilize forces from the east? Wouldn't that weaken their defenses against Hidden Cloud's village? That's too risky. What about the Eastern Front? Jiraiya still wasn't convinced. He understood Kleichi's plan, luring the enemy deep, breaking through, encircling, and annihilating, but the Eastern Front was already under tremendous pressure from Hidden Cloud's village. If things weren't so dire, he and the third Hokage wouldn't be struggling to find a solution in the first place. Kleichi responded, we can keep an elite force stationed in the east, temporarily give up some ground to slow down the enemy, and once we quickly resolve the battle here, we can send reinforcements to the east. The idea was simple, concentrate forces to eliminate one threat first while holding off the other. Hiruzen was starting to see the bigger picture. After thinking it over, he suddenly realized another key advantage of Kleichi's plan, Minato's Flying Thunder God Jutsu. It can allow us to rapidly redeploy troops. Exactly. Kleichi nodded. In the world of shinobi warfare, powerful individuals had the ability to single-handedly shift the tide of battle. There was no need to mention outliers like Hashirama Senju or Madara Uchiha, who were essentially walking natural disasters. The most classic example was Henzo of the Salamander. Without him, Hidden Rain Village would have never had the power to challenge the great nations. Likewise, Flying Thunder God was a game changer. With it, a battlefield could be reinforced in an instant, essentially turning Minato into a one-man warplane, capable of reshaping the course of the war. Besides, origami jutsus combined with explosive tags, doesn't that basically make a bomber? In a mobile warfare scenario, Hidden Leaf Village still has the upper hand. Thinking this, Kleichi grew even more confident. Jiraiya wasn't the kind of person who is stubborn or rigid. According to Kleichi's plan, this approach was indeed better. After a moment of thought, he added, if they use Earth Style to construct defenses along the way, we can just use Earth Style to destroy them. We're not great at defense, but sabotage? That's easy. That makes sense. Kleichi nodded. Destruction is always easier than construction. At the same time, he felt a bit regretful. The third Hokage, the Sannin, these people understood things too quickly. Trying to manipulate them into giving high praise was damn near impossible. The third Hokage mulled over it for a long while before saying, but there's a problem. The Land of Grass is our ally. If we allow Hidden Stone's village nin to come through, we might face public backlash. Talk to them. Have them evacuate in advance. Once we defeat the Hidden Stone's village nin, they can return. If they refuse, then there's no reason for us to hold the border for them. Besides, I don't see the Kuzunin protecting their own homeland. For all we know, the moment we pull back, Hidden Grass Village will switch sides and help Hidden Stone's village nin attack us. Kleichi said coldly. As for Hidden Grass Village, he really had no fondness for them. Just like their name, they swayed with the wind. Wherever the stronger force was, that's where they leaned. If Hidden Stone's village nin came in, there was a high chance they'd immediately betray Hidden Leaf Village. At this point, another thought crossed his mind. Karen's mother. A member of the Uzumaki clan. A pitiful woman. Hidden Grass Village. They're really no good. Jiraiya sighed, feeling a sense of frustration. This village was just plain unlikable. All they ever did was secretly steal other people's jutsu, studying them to find weaknesses and countermeasures. If it were wartime espionage, that would be one thing. But they did it all the time, even in peacetime. That alone was bad enough. On top of that, they were the ultimate fence-sitters. Take now, for example, despite the war, not a single Kuzunin was on the front lines. They were all hiding in the back. Of course. If you asked the Kuzunin, they'd probably call it the wisdom of a small nation. But Jiraiya wasn't buying it. After a moment of thought, he said, how about I go negotiate? Force them to stand with us against Hidden Stone's village nin. If they refuse, we pull back and extend the battlefront into the Land of Fire. Jiraiya-sama, leave this to me. It's only natural for a young man like me to be a little hot-blooded and impulsive. Kleichi grinned. Jiraiya was speechless. Let you go? Then the Kutonin definitely wouldn't be going to the front lines. It was obvious, Kleichi was just waiting for an excuse to let Hidden Grass Village die. What Jiraiya didn't know. It wasn't just Kleichi. Right now, Yahiko and his group also wished for Hidden Grass Village's downfall. If Hidden Grass Village didn't suffer, how could Hidden Rain Village ever have a chance to rise? The third Hokage remained silent. From his perspective, he couldn't just sell out the Land of Grass so easily. But at the same time, he hesitated. Because, if he looked at the results, his previous decisions had gradually weakened Hidden Leaf Village. Meanwhile, Kleichi's strategy would allow Hidden Leaf Village to preserve more of its strength. Besides, Hidden Grass Village had always been unreliable, never truly loyal to Hidden Leaf Village or the Land of Fire. Sensei, let's just decide already. No need to hesitate. Kleichi, get ready, go talk to those Kuzunin today. If they won't contribute, deal with them. Jiraiya made the call, and he did so with clear satisfaction. He had wanted to take action against these bastards for a long time. He'd only held back because of the village's stance. But now, with the third Hokage present, seeing him waver, even considering Kleichi's proposal. Jiraiya knew his teacher too well. If left to the third Hokage, a decision might take until tomorrow. If something had to be done, it had to be done now. Understood, I'll head out immediately. Kleichi nodded. Of course, he wasn't in a hurry to talk to the Kuzunin. His real priority was finding that Uzumaki woman. Saving people was a race against time. Who knew if Hidden Grass Village had already discovered her? Jiraiya scratched his head, looking at the third Hokage. Looks like Kleichi really hates Kuzunin. Sigh. I don't know if this is the right decision. The third Hokage sighed. This approach would preserve Hidden Leaf Village's strength, but it might also give their enemies a way to smear their reputation. Jiraiya wasn't sure what to say. He, too, wished for peace in the ninja world. But Hidden Grass Village's actions had been deeply disappointing. If there were no better alternatives, then they would have to hold the border and protect the land of grass. But now that a better plan existed, he had no intention of letting Hidden Leaf Village's shinobi shed blood for them. Sensei, where are we headed this time? Hidden Grass Village. What are we going there for? Asuma was puzzled. It was wartime, why waste their combat strength on Hidden Grass Village? Kleichi glanced at him. Then, he continued walking and said calmly, to show you what a small ninja village is really like. Truthfully, he would have preferred to bring Mukai along. With Mukai's Byakugan, he could pinpoint any chakra sources within range, making it far easier to locate Karen's mother. Searching without him would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. However, if they couldn't find her inside Hidden Grass Village, it would at least mean that she hadn't yet been taken to the hospital and turned into a living medical tool. If she was there, then he'd figure out a way to get her out. After that, Kleichi glanced at his system interface. After convincing the third Hokage and Jiraiya, he had heard a reward notification. Only now did he have the chance to check what it was. Upon opening it, he was momentarily bewildered. The telescope jutsu. He had expected the reward wouldn't be anything amazing, but at the very least, he thought it would be something normal. This? Did he look like the type to use something like this? Then again, it wouldn't be a bad idea to prepare a crystal ball. No other reason, just to make battlefield surveillance more convenient. He wasn't like the third Hokage or Jiraiya, after all. Chapter 121, Hidden Leaf Village blocks the path to surrender. The land of grass wasn't large, about the same size as the land of birds, but it certainly had no shortage of ninja. This kind of setup was anything but healthy. No wonder they played both sides so effortlessly. As long as there were resources to be had, they would squeeze every last drop, especially from outsiders. Kleichi's eyes swept across the surroundings. The land of grass had many farmlands, and if war broke out, these fields would be the first to be trampled. And yet, upon arriving at Hidden Grass Village, what he saw was a village completely devoid of panic. Everything continued as usual. But, Sensei, we're here to help defend their village, yet not a single one of them looks even remotely friendly to us. Shizue lowered his voice. The Hidden Grass Village ninja were anything but welcoming. The moment they spotted the Hidden Leaf Village forehead protectors, their gazes turned cold, far from the attitude one would expect from allies. Kleichi glanced around. The Hidden Grass Village ninja avoided them at all costs, unwilling to even make eye contact. It was obvious. Kleichi was a Jonin. And a Hidden Leaf Village Jonin was not to be trifled with. It's simple. Kleichi said with a smile. Because we're blocking their way. With that, he gripped the hilt of his sword and began walking, step by step, toward the Chunin stationed at the village gates, responsible for handling visitor registration. May I ask who you are? The Chunin didn't dare show the slightest bit of negligence. With a Hidden Leaf Village army stationed at the border, provoking them now would be a disaster, one far beyond what a mere Chunin could bear responsibility for. Kanda Kleichi, Hidden Leaf Village Jonin. I've been sent to request an audience with your leader. These are my students. Kleichi handed over the official documents. Understood. Once your registration is complete, you may enter. However, our leader may not be present at the moment. That's fine. Kleichi smiled. Not here? Hey. It didn't matter if the Hidden Grass Village leader was not here. If Hidden Grass Village didn't want to negotiate, Kleichi would simply leave a formal notice at their office. At that point, the choice wouldn't be up to them, it would be up to him. A bunch of short-sighted fools. Kleichi led Shizue and the others into the village, while Shizue carefully observed Hidden Grass Village. This was his first time stepping into another ninja village. And yet, something felt strange. The land of grass was on the verge of catastrophe, yet its ninja seemed completely indifferent. Worse, they even resented Hidden Leaf Village's intervention. This, Shizue simply couldn't understand. Kleichi, however, understood perfectly. Hidden Leaf Village was blocking their path to surrendering to Hidden Stones Village. That said, to be fair, the land of grass wasn't in an easy position. Look at their neighbors, the land of fire, the land of earth, the land of rain, and the land of waterfall. The first two were powerhouses, no need to elaborate. Even the latter two, despite being smaller villages, were formidable in their own right, not opponents the land of grass could afford to provoke. But still, Kleichi was from Hidden Leaf Village, and their forces were already deployed to the front lines. Meanwhile, the Hidden Grass Village ninja had merely expressed their concern without actually contributing anything substantial. So he felt no sympathy for them. As they walked further in, Kleichi subtly observed his surroundings, using his chakra sensing jutsu to scan the area. There were quite a lot of ninja. But with so many different chakra signatures, pinpointing a member of the Uzumaki clan was like finding a needle in a haystack. He continued wandering through the village. The grass ninja kept their distance, avoiding him at every turn. Asuma and Kurenai were puzzled. They had no idea what was going on, and since Kyoichi wasn't explaining, they had to piece it together themselves. After thinking about it for a while, they still had no clue. Forget it, better to wait for answers. Kyoichi eventually reached the outskirts of the village, where the houses looked vastly different from those in the main area, dilapidated, with piles of trash scattered about. Inside one of the houses, someone was watching them. Of course. If that were all, Kyoichi wouldn't have paid much attention. But through the cracks in the broken walls, he caught a glimpse of something, a striking shade of blood red. An Uzumaki? His mind stirred. Then, he noticed something else. Many hidden grass village ninja were secretly observing them, their hostility even stronger now. It seemed Hidden Grass Village had already discovered her abilities and had even given her a separate house. Kyoichi casually moved forward, making sure to visit a few more places to avoid drawing suspicion. But then, a figure landed in front of him. Kyoichi-sama, our leader has returned. He has sent me to escort you to him. A Hidden Grass Village ninja. Kyoichi glanced ahead and said, no rush. I'd like to look around a bit more. Kyoichi-sama. Fine, fine. Since your leader is in such a hurry, I suppose I have no choice but to see him first. I was hoping to explore the customs and culture of your village a bit longer, though. Kyoichi sighed in disappointment. Shishui and the others followed behind him, their expressions unchanged. But knowing their teacher well, they could tell that the person in the house had caught his interest. He had paused for a second or two. Kyoichi left. The Hidden Grass Village ninja finally breathed a sigh of relief and dispersed. Kyoichi, on the other hand, was led by Hidden Grass Village's Anbu toward the leader's office. The Hidden Grass Village leader had returned. He had no choice but to return. Even if he didn't know Kyoichi's exact intentions, he had at least heard of him. A newly promoted Hidden Leaf Village Jonin from last year. Rumored to be quite strong. If he left Kyoichi unattended, there was no telling how much intelligence Hidden Leaf Village might gather from Hidden Grass Village. I heard you were away. Kyoichi said as he entered. So I thought I'd take a look around before coming to see you. I didn't expect you to return so quickly. I hope my unexpected visit hasn't interrupted anything important. Kyoichi wore a sincere expression, his words polite and apologetic. But, to the Hidden Grass Village leader, it didn't sound that way at all. His smile stiffened. Oh, not at all. With Hidden Stones Village launching large-scale attacks on our land, we only managed to hold them off thanks to Hidden Leaf Village's help. No matter how urgent my matters were, they couldn't be more important than this meeting with you. Good to hear. Kyoichi gestured for him to sit. For a brief moment, irritation flashed across the Hidden Grass Village leader's face, but he still sat down. Yesterday, I took a squad to scout the Land of Earth. Kyoichi continued casually. Along the way, we eliminated 3 or 4 elite Hidden Stones Village squads. Sigh, I have to say, Hidden Stones Village is quite formidable. Especially in defensive warfare, we simply aren't their match. Then he added, on top of that, we're fighting on 3 fronts, and our forces are stretched too thin. But I heard the Eastern Front had already been secured? The Hidden Grass Village leader's expression was complicated. 3 or 4 elite squads? If this guy wasn't bluffing, then his strength was terrifying. He alone could probably take on 10 full squads from Hidden Grass Village. Good thing they hadn't provoked him. Otherwise, they'd be in serious trouble. Who knows if Hidden Mist Village will launch another attack? We can't place our hopes on their mercy, so we've still stationed forces in the east. Kyoichi said. Right now, our manpower is critically low. I wonder if your village could send more troops so we can launch a counterattack. He didn't bother beating around the bush. The Hidden Grass Village leader hesitated before replying. Our Jonin squads are already deployed in the defense effort. The only ones left in the village are Chunin and Gainin. They wouldn't be much help in an offensive operation, would they? Chunin are useful on the battlefield too. And medical ninja, supplies, those are also crucial. Hidden Leaf Village is stretched too thin across 3 battlefronts. If it really comes to it, we may have to abandon the Land of Grass entirely. Kyoichi sighed. What? No, that's out of the question. The Hidden Grass Village leader panicked. Some in Hidden Grass Village wanted to defect to Hidden Stones Village, but he hadn't made a decision yet. The situation was still uncertain. Hidden Leaf Village had won in the east, and the overall war was still up in the air. Hidden Leaf Village might not lose. Choosing a side too early was risky. Hidden Grass Village had survived all these years by playing both sides, but now Hidden Leaf Village was forcing them into a decision. Kyoichi's words put the question squarely in front of him. Who would they stand with? Kyoichi remained silent, simply watching him. The leader's mind was in chaos, but outwardly, he asked, "Is this the Hokage's decision?" "The Hokage is on the front lines himself," Kletchi answered. On the front lines? So this was Sarutobi Hiruzen's decision? No way. The Hokage wasn't the type to force a village into choosing sides. He wanted to use vague words to stall for time. But Kletchi simply smiled and didn't respond. "If necessary," Kletchi continued, "why don't we relocate the Land of Grass's civilians to the Land of Fire for now? Once we defeat Hidden Stone's village, they can return." "What? Absolutely not." The Hidden Grass village leader nearly exploded. If their civilians settled in the Land of Fire, they'd never come back. Even if he didn't fully understand the economic foundations of a ninja village, he knew Hidden Grass village couldn't survive without the Land of Grass and its people. Yet he refused to give up anything. "Our plan remains the same," Kletchi said. "If you're willing to join the counterattack, send someone to discuss the details. If not, we'll withdraw our forces in 3 days to avoid causing further trouble for your country." Kletchi bowed slightly, then turned and left, not waiting for a response. A final ultimatum. As he stepped out, he could hear the faint sound of something smashing inside. But he didn't care. Kletchi had achieved both of his goals in a Hidden Grass village. There was no need to linger. He walked straight toward the village gates. The Hidden Grass village ninja didn't dare stop him. Once they left the village, Shisui finally spoke. "Sensei, it seemed like you never expected Hidden Grass village to send troops in the first place, did you?" Kletchi nodded. "If you study Hidden Grass village's history, you'll see that it has always been caught between major powers. Their strategy has been to side with whoever looks strongest at the time. Right now, it looks like we're at a disadvantage, but we won in the east." Hearing that, Asuma instantly understood. No wonder. Most of the Hidden Grass village ninja believed Hidden Stone's village would win. But their leader and a few others thought Hidden Leaf village still had a chance, so they remained undecided. They wanted to avoid losses while keeping the war going, waiting to see who would come out on top. How convenient. Asuma scoffed. No wonder the Hidden Grass village ninja at the front lines all looked half dead. They're faking it. I wonder what they'll choose. Shisui mused. Hidden Grass village had finally been forced to make a decision. This situation. It felt oddly similar to the Uchiha. They definitely won't choose to go on the offensive. If the Hidden Grass village ninja were actually willing, he wouldn't mind leading them in a counterattack, anything to avoid getting bogged down in a war of attrition with the Hidden Stone's village ninja. But was that possible? Highly unlikely. Kletchi wasn't holding his breath. Instead, he was already considering when to come back and snatch people from Hidden Grass village. Chapter 122, Jiraiya, how dare you tarnish my innocence out of thin air. The Hidden Grass village ninja weren't particularly strong. Kletchi had just done a quick round, estimating that he alone could make them too scared to poke their heads out. But considering the alliance between them, barging in to take people outright didn't seem appropriate. He looked back. If worst came to worst, having Nagato and the others step in was also an option. There were always more solutions than problems. "Sensei, they really aren't chasing us? Feels like they're even more resolute than we are. Small ninja villages don't have much choice." Kletchi shook his head. When he returned to the front lines, he noticed some commotion ahead. He hurried over and, after some inquiries, learned that the Hidden Stones village ninja had retreated. Of course. Not too far. They had only pulled back from the Hidden Grass village ninja border to the outskirts of the Land of Earth. But the attitude behind their move was questionable. Just as he arrived at the Hidden Leaf village camp, a Chunin approached. "Kletchi-sama, Hokage-sama and Jiraiya-sama request your presence in the command tent immediately to discuss the next steps." Understood. Kletchi glanced at Asuma and the others before using body flicker to head toward the tent. Inside, several figures were gathered. Most of the high-ranking jonin assigned to this front were present, people like Inoichi Yamanaka and Choza Kimiki. "Hokage-sama. Kletchi, report on your situation first." "Yes." The Hidden Grass village ninja didn't make any clear stance, just kept being vague. "I told them that if they don't cooperate with our counteroffensive within 3 days, we will withdraw from the front lines." Kletchi laid out his decision. Then, he recounted everything he had observed along the way, without embellishment. The tent immediately erupted in discussion. Shikaku Nara wasn't present. Though his intellect was invaluable at the front lines, Tsunade wasn't the Hokage yet. Having just taken over administrative duties, she needed a capable assistant. Shikaku was the best choice. With no one else to consult, the third Hokage scanned the room before settling his gaze on Inoichi Yamanaka. "Inoichi, what's your take on this?" I think Kletchi's plan is feasible. As for the Hidden Grass village, if they won't support our counterattack, There's no reason for us to waste resources fighting the Hidden Stones village ninja here. Inoichi said. The third Hokage pondered briefly and nodded slightly. The Hidden Grass Village ninja leader would likely come to negotiate, but the outcome was predictable. Joining Hidden Leaf Village in an offensive against the Hidden Stones Village ninja was highly unlikely. Most of the Hidden Grass Village ninja sought opportunities, not war. With that mindset, they weren't reliable allies. In fact, Hidden Leaf Village had to worry about them switching sides mid-battle. Jiraiya had been silent until now. But after Inoichi finished speaking, he chimed in. I think the real issue isn't the Hidden Grass Village ninja. We already know where they stand, so there's no need to waste energy on them. The real concern is the Hidden Stones Village ninja. Agreed. The Hidden Stones Village ninja's retreat is likely due to Kleichi wiping out 4 of their squads. They're probably gathering intelligence now. Inoichi said. There was no need to elaborate on how they were gathering intelligence, everyone knew. The Hidden Mist Village. Selling information was nothing new for them. So, the plan remained largely unchanged. But after some thought, Kleichi spoke up. Hokage-sama, I'd like to attempt another infiltration, this time to assassinate their demolition squad leader. They're on guard now. If you go again. The third Hokage frowned. Too risky. Last time, I had to watch out for Shizue and the others. This time, I'll go alone. If it works, great. If not, I'll retreat. They won't be able to catch me anyway. Kleichi said. With the sword of the Thunder God, and without the burden of Asuma and the others, he wasn't afraid of the Hidden Stones Village ninja's numbers. After all, the Hidden Stones Village ninja might have numbers, but their attack styles were limited, and their speed was hardly impressive. They were like a bunch of heavily armored turtles, not something to fear. Numbers alone weren't enough. The room fell silent. Since the third Hokage hadn't spoken, no one else dared to comment. But then, someone stepped forward. I'm going with you. Huh? Kleichi turned in surprise to see Jiraiya. He then looked toward the third Hokage with a strange expression. Aren't you supposed to be commanding the eastern battlefield? Orochimaru and Minato are there. Nothing to worry about. As for the east, I doubt there's much to fear. With what's left of Hidden Mist Village, they wouldn't dare attack us now. Jiraiya said. And he wasn't wrong. He had already received reports from the third Hokage. Although 3 members of the 7 ninja swordsmen had been released in the end, they were already broken in spirit. Fight again? With what? The Hidden Mist Village wasn't like Hidden Leaf Village. Internal conflicts among their clans were severe. The third Mizukage was sick and losing power, while Yaguro had suffered a defeat and hadn't yet solidified his authority. Attack Hidden Leaf Village? Jiraiya figured that even if Yaguro had 3 times the courage, he wouldn't dare. If anything, Yaguro would likely turn his attention north, toward the Hidden Clouds Village. Hidden Clouds Village's army was locked in a brutal fight with Hidden Leaf Village, leaving their rear vulnerable. The Hidden Mist Village forces still had a chance against them. If they lost again, Yagura could kiss his 4th Mizukage ambitions goodbye. But this battlefield was different. The Hidden Stones Village ninja were tough. The forces currently deployed were only a fraction of Hidden Stones Village's full might. If Anoki acquired enough intel from Hidden Mist Village, he would send far more reinforcements. That's why Jiraiya wanted to go along. Kleichi considered for a moment, then nodded. With Jiraiya-sama, success is almost guaranteed. Let's move now. Be careful. I'll have Al assist with extraction. The third Hokage had nothing else to add. He was realizing how little control he had over the battlefield now. Even at the front lines, he felt more like a symbolic figure. Of course, that was just his own impression. For everyone else, he was still highly respected. Kleichi and Jiraiya left the tent. Asuma and the others saw them move out but remained silent. They knew that during the previous infiltration mission, they had only slowed Kleichi down. This time, Sensei left with Jiraiya-sama. Asuma muttered. We need to get stronger. Otherwise, we'll be useless in infiltration missions. Shizue said, then turned to train. Using the Sharingan last time had nearly drained his chakra. Next time. That wouldn't happen again. Your students are impressive, not like Minato's. Just thinking about them gives me a headache. Good thing his students weren't my responsibility. Jiraiya grumbled. Kakashi, huh? Kleichi chuckled. What did they do this time? Nothing too bad. Obito's finally following orders, so that's progress. The problem is Kakashi. Jiraiya didn't elaborate. But Kleichi could guess, Kakashi was probably struggling with something again. He shook his head, packed his things, and was about to leave when something crossed his mind. The telescope jutsu. As long as he remembered his target's chakra signature, this jutsu could be useful. He had gotten close enough to Gari earlier to imprint his chakra signature. If he brought a crystal ball, it might work. After weighing the idea, he said, "Wait a moment. I need to borrow a crystal ball from Hokage-sama." "Why?" Jiraiya blinked, then widened his eyes in shock. "Wait. You figured out Sensei's secret jutsu?" "Ahem. I just thought it was useful in combat, so I studied it." Keiichi said. "That's right. I think it's useful too." Hee, Keiichi, forget borrowing, how about sharing that jutsu with me?" Jiraiya grinned knowingly. He reached into his pouch, unsealed a scroll, and pulled out a bunch of miscellaneous items, ink, brushes, paper. And after rummaging around, a small crystal ball. "Ahem, don't get me wrong. What I mean is, if I learn this jutsu, I could use it on the battlefield to monitor the situation at all times as a commander." "Monitor the situation?" "Yeah, right. I'm not even going to bother calling you out on that one." Keiichi picked up the crystal. Jiraiya really came prepared. He hadn't even learned the jutsu yet, but he already had all the necessary tools. "So it's prepare the supplies before sending the troops." "Huh? Classic. Like master, like student." Jiraiya trailed behind, trying to sweet-talk his way into learning the jutsu. He even offered to trade it for his Wild Lion's main jutsu. Unfortunately, the Wild Lion's main jutsu was something Keiichi hadn't bothered studying yet, but with Needle Jizo as a foundation, mastering it wouldn't be difficult at all. Seeing that his usual tricks wouldn't work, Jiraiya could only sigh in frustration. Damn it. Just a tiny little hobby. But in the end, it was just a passing thought. Though he really wanted the telescope jutsu, the real priority was assassinating the Explosion Corps captain, Gari. After listening to Keiichi's description of Gari's abilities, Jiraiya immediately decided the man had to die. Explosion style. Not a threat to them, but against ordinary Hidden Leaf Village shinobi, it was a devastating weapon. "Jiraiya, this is a stealth operation. Even you have to follow my orders. Otherwise, I'll report to Tsunade that you've been sneaking off to peep at the bathhouse while she's not around." "You! How dare you slander me out of nowhere?" Jiraiya panicked. Damn it. When have I ever? Okay, fine. Maybe he had done it. But how could this brat go and tattle to Tsunade? Slander? You even tried to drag me along last time. Bro, you're my big bro. I'll listen to you, you're the expert here. How could I not follow your lead? Jiraiya immediately surrendered. If Tsunade only found out that he'd been peeping, at worst, he'd take a punch. But if she learned that he almost roped Keiichi into it too, he'd probably end up in the hospital after the war. Ahem, Jiraiya-sama, I was only establishing command authority. No other meaning. Let's head to the land of Earth first. Once we get there, I'll try using the telescope jutsu. Keiichi said calmly. Jiraiya nodded. However, what he didn't know was that when Keiichi had gone to retrieve his supplies, he had also left behind a shadow clone. While the real Keiichi and Jiraiya set off for the land of Earth, the clone quietly slipped away, avoiding attention and traveling along the river using the water instantaneous body jutsu, its destination, Hidden Grass Village. It wasn't necessarily going to act immediately, but given the current situation in Hidden Grass Village, the Uzumaki survivor there could be in danger at any moment. If things turned critical, the clone might have to step in ahead of schedule, even if it was just a clone, against the Hidden Grass Village ninja. It was more than enough. Chapter 123, Does this lineup even need a disguise? A corner of Hidden Grass Village. Inside a dilapidated house, a girl huddled in the corner, eating discarded food she had scavenged. Her hair was a striking crimson red, an unmistakable trait of the Uzumaki clan. Deep underground, Keiichi remained hidden. At that moment, the door was abruptly thrown open, and a man strode in. Someone's injured. You, come with me to the hospital. Can I at least finish eating first? She asked timidly. This garbage. Hurry up. What happens to the injured if we wait for you to eat? If you don't listen, we'll throw you out, and then you won't even get to eat trash. He barked viciously. Yes. She had no choice but to set her food aside. She knew that if she delayed any longer, the food she had painstakingly found would likely be trampled into the dirt. This village. For outsiders, survival was unbearably difficult. She couldn't help but think of her days in the land of whirlpools. But it was all in the past, there was no going back. Following behind the Hidden Grass Village ninja, she was just about to step outside when she suddenly sensed a surge of chakra rising from underground. Just as she was about to react, a second figure materialized inside the room. His hair was the same striking red as hers. The moment he appeared, his hand shot out, seizing the Hidden Grass Village ninja's throat, executing some kind of secret jutsu. She froze. Red hair. A clansman? Impossible. She found it hard to believe, yet deep inside, a glimmer of hope took root. Could he really be one of her own? What's your name? Yuzu? Ori. My name is Oriri. She answered softly. Kleichi nodded. Ignoring the hidden grass village ninja he held by the throat, he let out a gentle sigh. Our clan was forced to flee years ago. Not many of us have had good lives since. Would you like to come with me? Of course. Her eyes lit up. She wasn't sure if this man was truly from the Uzumaki clan, but at the very least, she could feel his kindness. He saw her as a person, not just a tool for healing. That was enough. The hidden grass village ninja struggled desperately, but his stamina and chakra were steadily being drained away. Eventually, even his resistance grew feeble. The efficiency of the chakra absorption jutsu had improved slightly. It could now convert 40%. Unfortunately, this hidden grass village ninja was only a chunin. There wasn't much chakra to extract. Kleichi's shadow clone had only recovered partially, still far from full strength. But then, why are you taking so long? Are you seriously waiting for her to fin? Another one appeared outside. The moment he reached the doorway, he sensed something was wrong. Oriri's eyes were far too bright, nothing like someone being forced to go to the hospital. But, too late. A hand closed around his throat and dragged him inside. What's going on in there? A commotion erupted outside. However, by the time they rushed in, all they found was a body slumped in the corner. Chakra drained. Dead. After them. The hidden grass village ninja were furious. Oriri was a rare, invaluable medical asset. With her, hidden grass village could save many more of their wounded shinobi. And now, she had been stolen from them. This could not stand. They immediately gave chase. Soon, they spotted a red-haired man carrying Oriri and another hidden grass village ninja, flickering away into the distance. The man turned back for a brief moment, his gaze was cold, brimming with killing intent. In that instant, they hesitated to pursue. Only after a couple of seconds did they snap out of it and rush forward. But when they finally caught up, all they found was the corpse of their comrade. A red-haired ninja. The Uzumaki clan? A cold sweat ran down their spines. An Uzumaki had come, taken Uzumaki Oriri, and left. Thankfully, they had only just captured her. If they had used her for too long, the grudge would have been far worse. They hurried back to report to the village chief. The chief was livid. Oriri's abilities were invaluable to him. He would rather lose 3 or 4 teams of ninja than let her be taken. These idiots. Then, something felt off. He had kept Oriri's existence a secret. Yet, Hidden Leaf Village had shown up in the morning, and by the afternoon, she had been taken. Could this be Hidden Leaf Village's doing? Move out. We're going to see the Hokage. He couldn't hold back any longer. They needed to meet, so why not today? Hidden Leaf Village's camp. News of the Hidden Grass Village ninja chief's arrival quickly reached the third Hokage, who naturally would not ignore it. However, the Hidden Grass Village ninja chief's question made the third Hokage frown slightly. Hokage-sama, is Hidden Leaf Village really planning to withdraw? The third Hokage nodded, feeling displeased. Though they were both village leaders, Hidden Leaf Village was undeniably the stronger force. Throughout this war, Hidden Leaf Village had done nothing to mistreat Hidden Grass Village. This attitude was far too aggressive. Hokage-sama, we in Hidden Grass Village lack the strength to stand against both Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Stones Village. We only wish to survive, but what Hidden Leaf Village has done is simply too much. The Hidden Grass Village ninja chief clenched his fists, barely suppressing his anger. The third Hokage frowned. By the way, where is that Jonin who visited Hidden Grass Village earlier? He went on a mission to the Land of Earth. Really? This is a classified Hidden Leaf Village mission. I doubt we've reached the point where we must report to you. The third Hokage's gaze turned cold. This Hidden Grass Village chief. Something was off. I hope your classified mission is real. Otherwise, I can't help but be suspicious. This morning, he was wandering around my village, and by the afternoon, someone was taken from us. With that, the Hidden Grass Village chief left without further discussion. This was an open confrontation now. The third Hokage furrowed his brows. Who could have shaken this man's composure so badly? He suddenly felt curious. As for Hidden Grass Village's grievances, the third Hokage wasn't worried in the slightest. If Kleichi wasn't responsible, then Hidden Leaf Village wouldn't be blamed. If he was responsible, then there wouldn't be any evidence left behind. He trusted Kleichi's skill. In the shinobi world, strength alone could settle many disputes, often without the need for proof. However, Hidden Grass Village clearly wasn't strong enough for that to apply. Which meant they needed evidence. Otherwise, no one would believe them. More importantly, they didn't dare reveal exactly who had been taken. Because what if a powerful Uzumaki survivor really did exist? That was too dangerous to expose. Kleichi hadn't received a signal from his clone yet, But he was confident that his shadow clone had already escaped danger. And right now, it was probably traveling alongside the Uzumaki girl. He thought to himself. Both of them were strong. Crossing borders unnoticed wouldn't be an issue. Upon reaching the previous hideout, Kleichi sensed a large number of hidden stones villagemen in the area. Among them was Gari's chakra. After locking onto his location, Kleichi pulled out a crystal ball and began refining chakra. Haven't you already found him? Why use that jutsu? Just trying it out. The next moment, the crystal ball revealed the scene ahead. Inside a fortified rock structure, Gari was pacing restlessly, clearly waiting for something. Kleichi and Jiraiya exchanged a glance. They both knew exactly what he was waiting for. Intel. Information on Kleichi. It's a shame we don't know how Hidden Stones Village transmits their intel. Otherwise, we could disguise ourselves and sneak in for an assassination. Jiraiya sighed. This lineup needs a disguise? Kleichi smiled. Jiraiya blinked, then asked, You're not seriously thinking about just charging in, are you? You draw their attention. I go in and kill him. Simple as that. Why bother with disguises? Even without Sage Mode, Jiraiya was still one of the strongest shinobi alive. And while Kleichi wouldn't claim to be stronger than Jiraiya, he certainly wasn't weak either. If he could find just one opening, he had a shot at taking down Hidden Stones Village's demolition squad leader. Maybe even dealing a major blow to Hidden Stones Village. Alright. Jiraiya didn't hesitate. With that, the two moved in. It was nighttime, a dark, windy night. Perfect for killing. A thick mist began to spread. At first, no one paid it much attention. But soon, an Hidden Stones villageman sensed something was wrong. This is hiding in the mist jutsu. Stay alert. Prepare to defend. Orders were given swiftly and efficiently. However, they never expected, the next moment, the sound of crashing waves filled the air. There was no river nearby. Where was the tide coming from? As they hesitated, a roaring tsunami surged through the canyon entrance like a waterfall from the heavens. Defend. Now. Panic set in. It had been years since they'd seen water style on this scale. Fortunately, Hidden Stones Village had plenty of veteran shinobi who reacted quickly, immediately forming earth-style barriers. However, they soon realized, a high-pressure water jet suddenly pierced through their stone walls. A single sweeping strike, the floodwaters crashed in, overwhelming the defenses. The Hidden Stones villagemen retreated rapidly, setting up layer after layer of barriers, but just ceding that initial ground had already cost them dearly. Gari surveyed the wreckage of his base, his expression dark. Earth counters water? Bullshit. If this was what Earth counters water looked like, then he'd eat a mountain. The dense chakra mist had disrupted their sensory abilities, leaving them unable to pinpoint what was happening. And then, a voice echoed through the air. Who do you think I'll kill this time? TCH. Posturing again. Your water style is strong, sure, but all it does is disrupt our formation. Where is your partner? Or are you alone this time? Gari created an earth clone, making it speak from another location to divert attention. But Kleichi wasn't falling for it. He was already using Hidden Stones Village's own jutsus to sneak toward Gari's real location. The one speaking? That was just Jiraiya, imitating his voice. Soon, Kleichi got close. But he stopped moving forward. Because ahead, someone else was hidden in the rocks. Then, boom. A deafening explosion erupted above. The entire mountain shook. Even hidden within the rock, Kleichi could feel it. Then, through the vibrations, he heard a familiar grumbling voice. Jiraiya, you're making me do this again? Gamma hero. Perfect? Kleichi quietly refined his chakra. A moment later, heat radiated through the rock. The fire had burned away the mist, but that wasn't a problem. Because the moment had come. Kleichi surged forward toward Gari. The instant he emerged near the surface, Gari sensed the threat and immediately swung his fist downward. Explosion style, landmine fist. The rock beneath him detonated. However, Kleichi was completely unharmed. A layer of coarse fur, an icy armor, and a hardened black earthen spear effect covered his body. If that could break through his defenses, he would eat a mountain. And the moment he appeared, he drew his swords. Twin blades flashed, one infused with lightning style, crackling with energy. The other charged with wind style, its edge razor sharp. Two sword style, flash strike. Gari thought he had stepped back fast enough, his hands already forming seals, but he hadn't moved at all. Instead, he simply stood there. Whoosh! A figure flickered past him, disappearing into the night. The next moment, a head fell. Tumbling down the mountainside. Chapter 124, Tailed Beast Transformation? I can do that too. At that moment, a barrage of earth-style jutsus erupted from the ground. Yet, they failed to protect Gari. And they failed to stop Koichi. They could only watch as he vanished, without even getting a clear look at his face. Gari-sama. A group of Hidden Stones village nin stood in shock, their disbelief palpable. 10 full squads had been assigned to protect him. And yet, their captain had been slain in an instant. The enemy had come and gone like a ghost. Who could have predicted this? It was terrifying. Hold the others off for me. Koichi spoke, forming a hand seal with both hands. In an instant, an icy chill spread through the air. The steam that had risen before condensed, turning into droplets of rain. The entire water prison transformed into a towering glacier, with even the once molten lava inside freezing solid into stone. Jiraiya stood dumbfounded. He had never known Koichi could use ice style. That was a KK Genkai. The one most terrified, of course, was Roshi. He finally understood. This guy was never afraid of him. The so-called retreat had merely been a tactic to lure him here, into the perfect setup for an ambush. He had planned this all along. Damn it. Roshi surged with tail beast chakra. Behind him, 4 tails materialized. His transformation deepened. In the blink of an eye, the frozen lava reignited, turning back into searing molten rock. Then, with a furious roar, the water prison shattered. However, the moment the water prison broke, a hand landed on him. A layer of solid ice spread over his palm, shielding him from the intense heat of the magma and the corrosive tailed beast chakra. In his other hand, Koichi wielded a strange, massive sword. Roshi lashed out with a punch. But, with just a slight swing of the sword, he felt the chakra surrounding his fist being devoured. What the hell is this? Panic flickered in Roshi's eyes as he struggled against the ice encasing him. Yet, icy pillars, paired with crashing waves, surged forward, suppressing the torrents of magma erupting from his body. Explosions of ice and fire detonated in rapid succession, but neither side seemed to take any substantial damage. Then, Roshi noticed, it wasn't just the sword absorbing his chakra. Even Koichi's own hand was draining it away. His expression darkened. You like absorbing, huh? Fine. Take it all. Let's see if you can handle this. Pouring more power into it, Roshi channeled an overwhelming surge of tailed beast chakra. Not everyone can stomach the chakra of a tailed beast. At the same time, the 4 tails behind him lashed out. The ground quaked, and rivers of molten lava came surging forth. A Jinchuriki truly wasn't easy to deal with. But Koichi didn't waste time tangling with him. He withdrew immediately, so fast that Roshi felt humiliated and furious. This bastard got even faster. His previous speed wasn't even his limit. Every time Koichi raised the bar, Roshi felt like a fool. He had actually believed that Koichi had only been caught before because he wasn't fast enough. Now he realized, Koichi had only slowed down so Roshi could keep up. And now, escape was no longer an option. Roshi kept flooding the battlefield with magma, creating an inferno to prevent Koichi from getting close. The abandoned jutsu formation slowly faded. However, the next moment, Koichi formed another hand seal. Immediately, the 4 tails chakra within him was forced into his yin seal, while a different chakra stored inside was released. Roshi had no idea what he was doing. But, he wasn't about to sit back and find out. Shrouded in magma, he quietly condensed his chakra. A black sphere formed in his mouth. Tailed Beast Bomb. The moment Koichi completed his sealing, the Tailed Beast Bomb launched. Boom. In an instant, the dense chakra erupted into a beam of destruction, annihilating the spot where Koichi had stood. Did it hit? Roshi remained cautious. But then, he saw Koichi standing there, holding an enormous, grotesquely transformed sword. No, that wasn't just a sword anymore, it had completely morphed into some kind of bizarre, unknown beast. What the hell is that? Roshi was utterly baffled. Koichi calmly suppressed the tailed beast chakra that Samada had absorbed, transferring it into his yin seal. With masterful chakra control, he effortlessly gathered all of it into one place, before locking the seal shut once more. The yin seal was reinforced with a layer of 4 symbol seal, leaving it rock solid. And at the same time, tendrils of tailed beast chakra began seeping out. Hurry up and finish him off. I can feel Anoki coming. Jiraiya was still locked in combat against the Hidden Stones village nin reinforcements. When he glanced over at Koichi, his frustration grew. This is enemy territory. A Jinchuriki isn't that easy to deal with. But, even as he spoke, Jiraiya's expression turned serious. The tailed beast chakra that had leaked into Koichi's body was spreading thinly throughout. Though faint, his body was adapting to it. Now. First activation, release. Koichi took a deep breath. Then, in the next instant, he unleashed his chakra, brandishing Samada as he charged toward Roshi. In his enhanced state, His strength and speed surged dramatically. Rashi stared in shock. His chakra, it was starting to resemble a tailed beast's. It even radiated a molten glow, like lava. Impossible. Rashi couldn't believe it, but there was no time to hesitate. He unleashed the full power of the four tails. A colossal beast took form. Boom. It roared, slamming both fists into the ground. Lava style, Mount Hueco. The massive eruption covered the entire battlefield, nowhere to run. But, Saimata devoured everything. It carved a path straight through, consuming all the chakra in its way. And with Koichi's pseudo-tailed beast cloak shielding him, the damage from the lava was minimal. At blistering speed, swoosh. A deafening impact rang out. The four tails rock-like armor cracked apart, Saimata and the lava vacuum blade tearing a massive wound across its body. Blood streamed down in rivulets. Arg! Son Goku let out a pained, guttural roar. A gaping hole had been drilled through his arm, and his tail thrashed violently, wrecking the surroundings. But Koichi, infused with similar tailed beast chakra, didn't fear him. On top of that, he still had the Earth Spear effect. One hand pressed against Son Goku's wound, continuously pouring in Ice-style chakra. Son Goku's blood began to crystallize. Meanwhile, borrowing the tailed beast chakra, Koichi created a shadow clone. The clone, in sync with the sealing scroll prepared for Saimata, activated the four-symbol seal. The scroll unfolded. Intricate sealing patterns flared into existence, enveloping Son Goku's entire body. In mere moments, Koichi's seals locked into place, etching themselves onto the tailed beast's stomach. And then, with a reluctant snarl, Son Goku reverted back into Rashi. Rashi struggled desperately. But, he could no longer summon any of the four tails' power. Thud. Koichi knocked him out cold with a single punch. Then, gathering more chakra, he raised his sword once more, a vacuum blade infused with the four tails chakra. A searing inferno erupted forward, turning the night into blazing daylight. Move. Ah! Jiraiya bolted. Without a yin seal to store chakra, he had to conserve energy for an escape. In truth, he'd barely been fighting, he'd relied on Game Ubuntu the whole time. The Hidden Stones village nin attempted to shield themselves with Earth style. But, they couldn't keep up. Moments later, Onoki arrived. He soared over the firestorm, ready to give chase, only to be met with a swarm of eerie birds, diving toward him in the blaze. Exploding dugs? What kind of trickery is this? If those went off, even he wouldn't escape unscathed. Onoki hastily formed a cube in his hands and hurled it forward, disintegrating every last bird before they could detonate. The explosion never came. But, that brief delay was enough. He could already feel Rashi being dragged farther and farther away. Even while carrying someone, Koichi's speed remained absurdly fast, so fast that even lightweight rock jutsu couldn't keep up. And then, as he continued the pursuit, Onoki encountered more than a dozen deeply concealed black explosive tags. Individually, their power wasn't overwhelming, but they were a damn nuisance. Especially when, crack. Onoki's high-speed chase came to an abrupt halt. To dodge the explosion, he had to twist his waist midair. Damn it. Who the hell came up with this jutsu? It's like it was designed just to mess with me. This is just pure evil. Chapter 125, I gave you a chance, but you couldn't handle it. Onoki stopped chasing. Damn, you even know Conan's jutsu? Jiraiya was completely numb. Ice style, paper style, and just now. Was that a tailed beast transformation? I studied a bit, got lucky, that's all. Koichi said humbly. He had already sealed up the breach, locking the tailed beast chakra within the yin seal. At this moment, his body was covered in burns. For someone who wasn't a Jinchuriki, using the rampaging power of a tailed beast wasn't without consequences. But, compared to the power he gained, this price was negligible. Koichi was a little excited. This was just the four tails, how strong would the nine tails be? Of course. It would also be much harder to suppress and control. With his current abilities, if he were to borrow the nine tails chakra, he probably wouldn't be able to use any ninjutsu at the same time, just like how most people couldn't use ninjutsu after opening the third gate of the 8 gates. As for the four tails, the amount that leaked out was barely manageable. However, if he maintained the tailed beast state for too long, his entire body would be infiltrated by its chakra, leading to the same issue. So, his tailed beast state had a time limit. This needed further testing. Jiraiya watched as Koichi sealed, wrapped up, summoned, and teleported everything into Shikatsu Forest in one seamless motion. Then, he fell silent. So proficient. No way this was his first time abducting someone. That ice style? I originally wanted to study wood style, but it was too difficult. By accident, I ended up fusing ice style instead. Sigh, No wonder even the second Hokage couldn't master wood style. Jiraiya wanted to punch him. He forced himself to stay calm. And paper style? Even Conan knows that. I even shared my research with her. Enough, I don't care. Stop talking. Jiraiya was mentally exhausted. This guy. He had achieved incredible feats, yet he always described them as if they were trivial, making them sound completely unremarkable, which only made Jiraiya even more frustrated. By the way, I found a descendant of the Uzumaki clan in Hidden Grass Village. Jiraiya paused. The Uzumaki clan? After a moment of silence, Kletchi continued, she's a girl. Apparently, if she bites someone, she can heal them. You got her out? Of course. Although he hadn't received direct feedback from his clone, he was certain the clone had already rescued her. Jiraiya thought for a moment and said, I'll tell the old man that I did it. Huh? What are you thinking? I was asking if you had a suitable place for her. Bringing her to Hidden Leaf Village right now isn't the best option, and I doubt she even wants to go there. Kletchi explained. He wasn't familiar with the history of Hidden Eddy Village, but it was clear that its destruction involved many parties. To the surviving Uzumaki, Hidden Leaf Village might have its own share of blame. Otherwise, why didn't a single survivor flee to Hidden Leaf Village? Let me think. Jiraiya had a headache. He felt a strong connection to the Uzumaki clan, so he had no issue taking the blame. But arranging a place for her? How would he know where? Mount Mayabaku? No, too many bugs there. What about sending her to Nagato? Then again, if she's already with you, she might not want to leave. Jiraiya considered. If the girl didn't want to go to Hidden Leaf Village, then maybe Nagato's place was the best option, as long as she was willing to leave Kletchi. He thought for a moment and nodded. You're right. Can't I stay with you? The girl looked up, eyes full of fear and uncertainty. You don't want to go to Hidden Rain Village? Kletchi asked. Oriri shook her head. She was terrified of hidden villages. According to Kletchi, there was another Uzumaki descendant in Hidden Rain Village, but knowing her abilities, she feared that people there might still try to exploit her. Kletchi pondered and asked again, why don't you want to go to Hidden Leaf Village? There are scary people in Hidden Leaf Village. Oriri whispered. Scary people? Kletchi thought for a moment. If he had to guess, she was probably referring to either Hiruzen or Danzo. But most likely Danzo. The Uzumaki clan's sealing jutsus, their adamantine chains, and their strong vitality and lifespan, to some people, they were the perfect Jinchuriki candidates. However, outside of Hidden Leaf Village, no other village had truly perfect Jinchuriki, especially Hidden Mist Village. If that was the case, then Danzo could very well have played a role in Hidden Eddy Village's downfall. Kletchi considered for a long time before asking, have you heard of Tsunade Hime? Her grandmother was Lady Mido of the Uzumaki clan. Lady Mido? I've heard of her. Oriri nodded. If I take you to Hidden Leaf Village in secret, and only she knows about you, would you be willing to go? Are you from Hidden Leaf Village? Oriri wasn't stupid. Kletchi's wording clearly implied that he was aligned with Hidden Leaf Village. She hesitated for a moment. Then she asked, what do I have to give in return? You don't need to give anything, child. Your healing ability is incredible, but believe me, I don't need it. I'm a decent medical ninja myself. As he spoke, Kletchi's hand emitted a faint glow of medical chakra. Oriri was stunned for a moment. Medical ninjutsu? She didn't know how to use it, but she had heard of it. The medical ninjas in Hidden Grass Village's hospital supposedly possessed this skill. However, she was sure of one thing, none of them were as strong as the man before her. And she had heard of Tsunade, the strongest medical ninja in the world. That was how Hidden Grass Village's shinobi described her, and Oriri secretly admired and longed for that power. Now, hearing Kletchi confirm her identity, her resistance toward Hidden Leaf Village slightly wavered. If it was that person, then Hidden Leaf Village might not be so bad. Alright, then it's settled. I'll take you to Hidden Leaf Village secretly. No one else will know. Kletchi was confident in this. However, before that, he had to teach Uzumaki Oriri the transformation jutsu. Since his shadow clone had absorbed quite a bit of chakra from Hidden Grass Village, it had enough reserves to last until they reached Hidden Leaf Village. As he taught her, they made their way toward the village. Meanwhile, Kletchi received a small notification. A trivial reward. But at least it confirmed that his shadow clone had indeed rescued the Uzumaki survivor and that she seemed to be getting along well with him. Though he wasn't sure exactly what had happened. For now, there were more pressing matters to deal with. Otherwise, he'd have asked Katsu to check in on them. They had reached the border of the Land of Grass. However, a new problem awaited them ahead. Bring the Jinchuriki back, and have the old man send a message to Onoki. This Jinchuriki is a bit too hot to handle. Jiraiya sighed. They had only come to take out a demolition squad captain, but somehow, they ended up stealing the enemy's Jinchuriki. Killing a few people wasn't a big deal. But taking a Jinchuriki, that was stepping into highly sensitive territory for all the great nations. Alright, but I want to try something first. Kleichi said. He understood how much trouble keeping the Four Tails Jinchuriki would bring, so he never intended to hold on to Roshi. The two of them returned to camp under the cover of night. Few knew that Kleichi and Jiraiya were back, except for the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi. It wasn't that Hiruzen was particularly sharp. It was just that Kleichi and Jiraiya went straight to him the moment they returned. You killed a bunch of Hidden Stones village in. And even captured their Four Tails Jinchuriki? Hiruzen's eyes widened. You two are. Sensei, this has nothing to do with me. I was just a distraction, a cleanup crew. Jiraiya smiled bitterly. What did this have to do with him? The key players were all Kleichi, Gari, Roshi. Those two alone had stolen the spotlight. Hiruzen looked at Kleichi in silence for a long time. He thought to himself. It was a good thing Danzo hadn't made a move against Kleichi yet. Otherwise, whether that old friend of his would still be alive was debatable. Then another thought struck him. Now the Hidden Grass Village leader had no argument left. Whoever took the missing Hidden Grass Village ninja, it definitely wasn't Kleichi. After all, who could spare an extra shadow clone while carrying out a near S-rank classified mission? With that thought, Hiruzen's face showed a slight smile. We'll discuss the details tomorrow. For now, get some rest. I'll handle the situation with Onoki. Yes, sir. Kleichi was mentally drained and needed rest. Jiraiya, understanding the situation, said nothing. He didn't mention the Uzumaki survivor to Hiruzen, pretending he knew nothing, and left with Kleichi to get some sleep. Afterward, Hiruzen immediately sent the Anbu to Hidden Grass Village. Now that the job was done, they could go public with it. After all, a toad that big was impossible to keep secret. When the Hidden Grass Village leader got the news, he was utterly dumbfounded. Before, he had been certain that Hidden Leaf Village was behind the kidnapping. But now, he wasn't so sure. Two people infiltrated deep into Hidden Stones Village's territory, wiped out multiple elite squads of Hidden Stones Village Jonin, and even subdued and captured the Four Tails Jinchuriki. If those two had wanted to target Hidden Grass Village, they could have done it in a single breath. Whether Kleichi was responsible or not, this incident had to be separated from Hidden Leaf Village. The next morning. Hokage-sama, I apologize for my previous rudeness. Please accept this small token of Hidden Grass Village's sincerity. The Hidden Grass Village leader arrived early. Hiruzen smiled kindly. Kleichi is busy guarding the Jinchuriki and couldn't come to meet you. But at least some misunderstandings can be cleared up now. Yes, after a thorough investigation, we ruled out Hidden Leaf Village's involvement. It's possible that some damn Hidden Stones Village nin had secret operatives in Land of Grass and got their hands on some intel. The Hidden Grass Village leader spoke with righteous indignation. Hiruzen narrowed his eyes slightly before nodding. Hidden Stones Village nin, huh? Not impossible. Do you have a description or a name? After the war, we could help negotiate their return. No need, no need. The Hidden Grass Village leader quickly shook his head, cursing internally. He had no idea who was responsible, but it sure as hell wasn't the Hidden Stones Village inn. Respectfully, he asked, Hokage-sama, with Hidden Leaf Village's victory here, will your forces be withdrawing soon? We're pulling out early, today. Hiruzen nodded. The Hidden Grass Village leader looked up, stunned. Then, without another word, he bowed his head again. Meanwhile, in a nearby tent, Kleichi smirked. I gave you a chance yesterday, but you couldn't handle it. Chapter 126, Controlling a tailed beast is not the same as becoming one. Sushi Kage-sama, please, no more high-speed evasive maneuvers at that velocity. Your back can't take it. In normal circumstances, it wouldn't be an issue. That little bastard hid explosive tags. Ugh, forget it. I get it. You can go. Lying in bed, Onoki looked utterly drained of life. They had already pulled back enough. The front lines had retreated all the way to the Land of Earth, and each outpost had over 10 teams stationed. Normally, there was no way anyone could break through. But who would have thought Hidden Leaf Village would send 2 top-tier Jonin for a sneak attack? And right before he could review the intelligence from Hidden Mist Village, no less. To be honest, Onoki was starting to suspect Hidden Mist Village was coordinating with Hidden Leaf Village. Of course. The most infuriating thing was Roshi. That guy had always been difficult, but now it was clear, he was an absolute idiot. The enemy baited him, and he just walked right into their trap. And now? Captured. A disgrace. Bring me the intel scroll. I want to see exactly what this Kanda Kleichi is all about. Seething, Onoki struggled to sit up. Back pain? That was nothing compared to his wounded pride. Oki didn't dare stop him and hurriedly presented the intel. Onoki started reading from the top. Suspected Senju descendant? His brow furrowed. That brought back some unpleasant memories. He kept reading. Water style, earth style, wind style, kenjutsu, ganjutsu. Mastery in all of them. No, wait. According to their reports, he also had ice style and sealing jutsus. There was no doubt. Those flying bird explosive tags had to be his doing. And odds were, those very same explosive tags came from the batch Hidden Stones village had mysteriously lost a few days ago. Bang! Onoki hurled the scroll away in fury. Sushikage-sama. Ah, damn it, my back. Pain shot through him again, forcing him to slump back down. He didn't even want to talk anymore. Father, with Rashi captured, what should we do next? Should we negotiate with Hidden Leaf Village? Fight. Onoki's expression was twisted with anger. Negotiate? If Hidden Leaf Village thought capturing Rashi gave them leverage over him, they were sorely mistaken. He had never believed that a single Jinchuriki could dictate the course of war, nor would he let one individual alter his entire strategy. A Jinchuriki was just a Jinchuriki, nothing more than a ninja with borrowed power. They weren't as invincible as they liked to think. That applied to both Rashi and Han. That was Onoki's stance. As a result, while Jinchuriki in Hidden Stones village weren't as reviled as in some other villages, they weren't particularly revered either. Especially Rashi, many Hidden Stones village nin didn't even consider him as useful as a regular Jonin, at least an ordinary Jonin could fight on the front lines. But Rashi? He spent most of his time confined within the village, a so-called trump card that had never actually been played. A figurehead, useless in real battle. Han fared slightly better, but he wasn't exactly celebrated either. That was why, when given the chance, Rashi had been so desperate to prove himself. And yet, his failure only reinforced Onoki's beliefs. On the battlefield, Jinchuriki were nowhere near as powerful as they imagined. Tell the troops not to dwell on this. Yes, we suffered some losses, but Hidden Stones village can handle it. Tomorrow, we'll pay Hidden Leaf village back double. Help me up. We're marching now. Onoki was livid. Yes. Oki understood immediately. His father's message was clear, full-scale assault. Take the fight straight to Hidden Leaf village. Orders were issued. The Hidden Stones village forces mobilized, hundreds, if not thousands, of teams assembling. Over the years, Hidden Stones village had rebuilt its military strength, and their front-line forces were only part of their total might. Many more Hidden Stones village nin remained stationed at the rear for defense and logistics. This was the foundation of Onoki's confidence in waging war against Hidden Leaf village. However, when they arrived at the borders of the Land of Grass, nothing. The entire battlefield was empty. In just one morning, Hidden Leaf village didn't leave behind so much as a scrap of cloth at the front lines. If they hadn't fought here before, the Hidden Stones village nin might have thought their memories of Hidden Leaf village's camp were just an illusion. As for the Kuza nin, they were still here, but it was clear they had no intention of fighting. A group of them approached the front lines respectfully. Lords of Hidden Stones village, Hidden Grass village is willing to cooperate. Please, do not harm the Land of Grass or its people. And the Hidden Leaf village ninja. They withdrew this morning. Said they were falling back to fortify the Fire Nation's border. The Kuza nin leader replied humbly. Seeing the massive Hidden Stones village nin army before him, he couldn't help but feel that siding with Hidden Stones village might not be a bad move after all. Hidden Leaf village simply didn't have as many shinobi as Hidden Stones village. So, what if they won? He suddenly felt much more confident in Hidden Stones village's chances. Good. Onoki had half a mind to beat him senseless, but for now, Hidden Grass village was still useful. That said, he wasn't going to be polite to a bunch of spineless turncoats. If you're willing to cooperate, then you're coming with us to invade the Land of Fire. Why yes, of course. Humphrey. Move out. We'll set up camp in the Land of Grass. Land of Fire border. Koichi and Rashi sat atop a mountain peak, grinning as they looked out toward the Land of Grass. From this vantage point, they could see parts of the battlefield. With that many Hidden Stones village nin, there was no way they could stay hidden. See? I told you Onoki wouldn't care about you. You're overestimating yourself. Ugh. Rashi said nothing, shutting his eyes as if surrendering himself to fate. Koichi kept pressing. You think Jinchuriki are strong. But in reality, there are plenty of shinobi who could kill you. If Hidden Leaf village were really afraid of Jinchuriki, we never would have handed out the tailed beasts in the first place. You're just lucky you counter me. Don't talk big. Rashi wasn't convinced. Koichi chuckled. Is that what you think? If you didn't have ice style or sealing jutsus, I wouldn't fear you at all. Even without those, I could still defeat you, I just wouldn't like the price I'd have to pay. Kleichi shook his head, then smirked coldly. Why should I not use the jutsus I worked so hard to master? Do you think I was born with ice style? It's a KK Genkai. Rashi said icily. Kleichi narrowed his eyes. So that's where Rashi's grudge against Hanoki came from. This guy. A little too confident, isn't he? Kleichi smirked. Onoki and your second Sushi Kage weren't born with particle style, but they trained until they mastered it. If they can do it, so can I. That's only because I haven't fully mastered my Jinchuriki powers. Rashi countered. Besides, there was also that sword that could absorb chakra. If he were so easily swayed, he wouldn't have spent years butting heads with Onoki. Kleichi didn't expect him to understand. If this stubborn old man did understand, I might actually have to consider killing him. So. Instead, Kleichi nodded. You're not wrong. Any path, taken to its peak, can become powerful beyond measure. Jinchuriki are no exception. Huh? Rashi looked at him in surprise. What the hell? Suddenly so reasonable? Did the sun rise in the west today? His guard went up. Kleichi continued nonchalantly. You've mastered lava style, haven't you? That's a result of your study of the tailed beast's power. But you're going about it the wrong way. You're telling me I'm doing it wrong? Rashi found that hilarious. A non-Jinchuriki telling a Jinchuriki how to train? That was like an amateur lecturing a master. He wasn't interested in listening anymore. But then, the next moment, Kleichi's body erupted with tail beast chakra. Boom. He slammed his fist into the ground. The entire mountain quaked, and the massive boulders beneath them shattered into dust. The next second, a Rasengan formed in Kleichi's hand. Tailed beast chakra poured into it, turning its core a fiery red. Lava style, Rasengan. The difference between humans and tailed beasts is that humans know how to use chakra better. You Jinchuriki, on the other hand, are turning yourselves into mindless beasts. How stupid. If tailed beasts were really that powerful, would they be sealed inside you? Kleichi sneered. Rashi frowned, unsure why Kleichi was saying all this. But the brat had a point. Even though he was at a disadvantage, he couldn't deny it, tailed beasts had their flaws and limitations. Why are you telling me this? I hear Jinchuriki aren't respected in Hidden Stones village. Some people think that instead of relying on a tailed beast, they should just develop stronger jutsu. Kleichi smirked. I do agree that Jinchuriki aren't all-powerful. But that doesn't mean they're useless. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gone through all this trouble to obtain your tail beast chakra. I'm just telling you this so you don't stay too stupid. Rashi didn't respond. He didn't even realize it himself, but his expression had softened. He was no longer as closed off as before. He fell into deep thought. Right now, his mindset was shifting. Rashi had to admit, there was a reason he lost. This Hidden Leaf village brat had ridiculous talent, sharp insight, and a hunger for knowledge far beyond most shinobi. That kind of person was terrifying. No shame in losing to him. Let's go. You'll be staying in the Land of Fire until Hidden Stones village loses this war. Kleichi didn't push further. Using the memories he had extracted from Rashi, he had successfully planted a seed, one that made Rashi think his words were sincere. But if you talk too much to a stubborn old man, he'd start suspecting you had an ulterior motive. This much was just right. Rashi didn't resist. His tailed beast chakra had been sealed away. His physical and spiritual energy were so drained that he could barely function. Escape or resistance were out of the question. As for suicide, he didn't think he'd get the chance. The moment they reached camp, he'd be fully sealed away with no freedom to act. The security was airtight. Back in his sealed chamber, Rashi lay quietly, staring at the ceiling. His mind drifted back to Kleichi's words, and to Onoki, who had chosen to keep advancing on Hidden Leaf village even after Rashi's capture. The difference between humans and tailed beasts is that humans know how to use chakra better. Am I becoming a beast? Instead of mastering one? He mulled over it. He never would have admitted it to Kleichi's face. But in private, the more he thought about it, the more it made sense. Jinchuriki weren't weaker than Onoki and the others, he simply wasn't strong enough. He hadn't unlocked the full potential of his tailed beast. And besides, why fear the tailed beast? If they were truly that powerful, they wouldn't be sealed inside humans. If he could fully control its power, he would definitely be stronger than the beast itself. Rashi's thoughts crystallized. I will forge the true path of a Jinchuriki. And prove we're not just the village's mascots. No. If I truly succeed, I'll teach every Jinchuriki how to master their power. No more wasted potential. Chapter 127, Danzo, how about you sacrifice yourself? inside the command tent of the third Hokage. The third Hokage sat in the center, with Kyoichi and Danzo facing off on either side. "Kanda Kyoichi, you took a Jinchuriki out on your own. You're playing with fire," Danzo said coldly. "I dared to take him because I have absolute confidence. Besides, with a brain like yours, how could you possibly understand my plans? Your vision is far too limited." Kyoichi shot back without hesitation. In the past, he avoided meeting Danzo because his strength wasn't enough, he couldn't beat him. But now, what was there to be afraid of? This guy thought he could sit here and dictate orders? Did he really think he was that powerful? Danzo's expression remained cold as he stared at Kyoichi for a long moment before speaking. "I suggest we extract the tailed beast and seal it within one of our own shinobi. After the war, we can decide whether or not to return it to Hidden Stone's village." Tap, tap, tap. The third Hokage's fingers drummed lightly on the table as he narrowed his eyes at Danzo. The atmosphere grew heavy. Kyoichi couldn't help but want to laugh. "Danzo, oh Danzo. You really have a talent for stepping on landmines. Sealing it into one of our own shinobi. And then giving it back? How exactly were they supposed to give it back? By forcibly extracting the tailed beast?" The third Hokage may have struggled with the idea of using a tailed beast for their own benefit, but he would never consider extracting and sealing it, only to return it later. Because in the end, that process would cost a Hidden Leaf Village shinobi's life. The Jinchuriki is an important asset. If we had one, our chances of victory in a head-on battle would be much greater. And besides, it wasn't Hidden Leaf Village that broke the rules first, it was Hidden Stone's village. Danzo continued. He was still convinced he was in the right, arguing his case with so-called logic. Kyoichi didn't bother responding. Let him talk. If he still couldn't see the bigger picture by now, then he was just a fool, not even worth the effort to argue with. "Danzo, your proposal is interesting. But who do you suggest should become the Four Tails Jinchuriki? The members of Root are all willing to sacrifice themselves. In that case, how about you?" the third Hokage asked coldly. Danzo narrowed his eyes, then shook his head. "I'm more valuable on the battlefield. Danzo-sama, to be honest, you and Root aren't as indispensable as you think. Hidden Leaf Village was undefeated in the shinobi world long before Root, or even the Anbu, existed, wasn't it? Besides, I'm here, aren't I? I promise, after you die, I'll take good care of Root for you." Kyoichi interjected with a smirk. The third's rebuttal had been too perfect. Danzo. This old fossil would never willingly sacrifice himself unless forced into a corner, like when Sasuke hunted him down. When had he ever considered giving up his own life for the sake of Hidden Leaf Village's future? Danzo's eyes darkened. He turned his gaze away from Kyoichi and looked at the third Hokage instead. The third closed his eyes, as if recalling something from the past. After a long pause, he finally spoke. "Do you remember the last question our teacher asked us?" "What do you mean?" Danzo's expression turned icy. That question. He would never forget it. Kyoichi glanced at them, sensing that he didn't need to say anything for now. One of the unspoken rules of arguing was that you never exposed someone's deepest regrets, especially not between old friends. Clearly, the third Hokage was truly angry. The will of fire has never been about demanding others sacrifice themselves for Hidden Leaf Village. It is about sacrificing ourselves, the older generation, to preserve Hidden Leaf Village's future and its younger generation. The third Hokage said calmly. "If you truly believe your plan is the best course of action, then you should become the Four Tails Jinchuriki yourself. And after the war, if the situation demands it, you will personally extract the tailed beast and return it to Hidden Stone's village." He didn't finish the sentence, but the meaning was clear. "If you can't do it yourself, then stop talking." Danzo's face darkened to the color of iron. Kyoichi had to admit, when the third Hokage got serious, he was far more respectable than Danzo. No wonder Danzo never dared challenge him for the Hokage seat while he was alive. "Hiruzen, you'll regret this. I don't know whether the Hokage-sama will regret it or not. But if being strong means you shouldn't be sacrificed, then second Hokage's decision would be hard to understand, wouldn't it?" Kyoichi said lightly. Danzo had no response. Senju Dobirama was a master of water style, the fastest shinobi of his time, capable of both teleportation and flying thunder god. If he had wanted to escape back then, he could have done so effortlessly. But instead, he chose to face the Hidden Clouds Village forces alone, sacrificing himself to ensure Hidden Leaf Village's future. Senju Dobirama had done so. And later, the third Raikage had done the same. And yet, was this the future the second Hokage had hoped for? What Kyoichi didn't say out loud was, if Senju Dobirama saw what Danzo had become, he might just break out of Edo Tensei himself just to beat some sense into him. Danzo had no words. After throwing out one last threat, he stormed out. Kleichi didn't bother stopping him. Their ideals were too different, arguing any further was just exhausting. Hokage-sama, if there's nothing else, I'll be leaving too. Wait. The third Hokage said. What do you plan to do with the Four Tails Jinchuriki? It's clear now that Onoki won't back down. He doesn't care whether his Jinchuriki lives or dies. He couldn't bring himself to sacrifice one of his own people just to gain a temporary advantage with a tail beast weapon. But at the same time, Roshi's presence was a problem. He was useless as a bargaining chip, provided no benefit, and instead drained Hidden Leaf Village's resources since they had to keep him under constant watch. So, the third Hokage needed to hear what Kleichi planned to do next. I never expected Onoki to actually care about his Jinchuriki. Kleichi replied. If Onoki truly cared, then when Roshi and Han defected, he wouldn't have just let them roam free for years. It wasn't like he didn't have the ability to track them down. The third Hokage frowned. Then what's your plan? Persuade Roshi not to return to Hidden Stone's village? That's not difficult. Ideally, I'd rather let him return and then have him and Onoki completely fall out. That way, Hidden Stone's village gets some extra trouble to deal with. Kleichi nodded to himself. The so-called leverage to force Onoki to retreat had always been an excuse. But even if he couldn't cause trouble for Onoki, at the very least, he was confident that Roshi wouldn't go back to Hidden Stone's village. And so far, things were progressing well. The third Hokage knew from the Yamanaka clan's intelligence that Hidden Stone's village had internal conflicts regarding Jinchuriki, including discrimination and mistreatment. Of course, Hidden Leaf Village had its own problems too. Even though Uzumaki Kushina wasn't strictly forbidden from taking on missions, her opportunities to leave the village were far more limited than the average shinobi. And her goal seemed to be Hokage? The third Hokage sighed heavily. He wanted to talk to Kleichi more, but when he looked up, Kanda Kleichi was already gone. Jiraiya had already gone east. And now, even if he just wanted someone to chat with, there was no one around. Kleichi had done it on purpose. He had nothing in common with the third Hokage. Whether it was governing a village or waging war, the third embodied the word stability. At least now, he understood something: the future belonged to the younger generation. His job on the front lines was just to maintain the bigger picture. The details? Let the younger ones handle it. For instance, this time, Kleichi wanted to reform Roshi. Even if the third Hokage didn't agree, he wasn't stopping him either. Roshi was already starting to think. For an old warrior, even beginning to question things was a huge step forward. Of course, Kleichi didn't realize, Roshi's direction of reflection was slightly different from what he had in mind. For the next few days, Kleichi didn't plan on seeing Roshi again. He needed time to let his thoughts settle. Outside Hidden Leaf Village, a shadow clone of Kleichi led Uzumaki Oriri, who was disguised through a transformation jutsu, toward the outskirts of Hidden Leaf Village. Sensing the presence of a barrier, he stopped in his tracks. Instead of moving forward, he silently summoned Katsu to notify Tsunade. Kleichi, is that Hidden Leaf Village up ahead? Oriri had long since realized that her rescuer was not an Uzumaki clansman. But Kleichi made her feel safe, unlike the Kuzunin who only saw her as a tool. Kleichi was different. Of course. To her, Kleichi and Hidden Leaf Village were two separate things. Hidden Leaf Village was not necessarily trustworthy. That was why her face was filled with unease and anxiety at the moment. Don't worry. Once you're in Hidden Leaf Village, you'll be free to choose your own path. I won't force you into anything. That includes the big sister who's coming to meet us. Oh, and by the way, make sure to call her On-chan, got it? Okay. Oriri nodded. In truth, she had already sensed someone approaching, fast. The chakra presence was strong, far beyond that of an ordinary ninja. Was this the leader of Hidden Leaf Village? Her nervousness grew. Moments later, a woman wearing a green robe appeared from the tree line ahead. Tsunade. Why do you look like a total vagabond? Tsunade frowned. Kleichi's current appearance was no different from a wandering samurai. This outfit doesn't attract attention. Kleichi didn't care and simply smiled. Then, he gestured toward Oriri. This is the girl I told you about. You're not planning on joining Hidden Leaf Village for now, is that right? Tsunade asked. Oriri hesitated for a moment before finally voicing her thoughts. I don't want people to know about me. Tsunade thought for a while, then gave a slight nod. She understood Oriri's concerns, so after considering it, she said, that's fine. Once you're in Hidden Leaf Village, I'll assign you to my personal guard. Besides Kleichi and me, no one will know your true identity. Thank you, On-chan. Oriri bowed deeply. Tsunade beamed. On-chan. Now that was some sweet talk. Wasn't she so much more likable than Shizune? The more Tsunade looked at her, the more she liked her. She nodded repeatedly and said, "Good, good. Don't worry. Your abilities may be powerful, but Hidden Leaf Village isn't so weak that we have to exploit you. If one day you want to live like a normal person, just let me know." Of course. If Root got wind of this, they would definitely try to use her. Tsunade was well aware of that, but she absolutely wouldn't let Danzo find out about Oriri's true identity or abilities. Oriri was tense. However, Tsunade spoke to her in a gentle tone, steadily easing her emotions. The resistance Uzumaki Oriri initially felt was beginning to fade. Then, Tsunade took out a set of clothing. It was an Anbu uniform. "What do I need to do?" Oriri looked up. Tsunade paused for a moment. What she needed to do? Tsunade hadn't even thought about that. The Uzumaki clan had always been allies of Hidden Leaf Village. Their emblem was even engraved on Hidden Leaf Village's flak jackets. Her own grandmother, Uzumaki Mido, had been a vital part of Hidden Leaf Village's history. From any perspective, she had never considered asking anything from Oriri in return. However, Oriri was completely serious. She was already over 14, an age where, even in Hidden Leaf Village, many had already set foot on the battlefield. She had endured hardships while wandering from Hidden Eddy Village to the Land of Grass and knew well that nothing in life came without a price. "I am about to become the 4th Hokage. Since you are now a member of my personal guard, your duty is to ensure my safety. Aside from that, I have no other demands." "Yes. I will protect you with my life." Oriri responded firmly. She then put on the Anbu uniform. It fit perfectly. With the hood and mask in place, no one would be able to tell she was an Uzumaki. Still, she chose to maintain her transformation jutsu. She had plenty of chakra. So why not be a little indulgent? Chapter 128, The essence of maneuver warfare lies in flexibility. You're still young. Right now, you don't need to risk your life. The proper path is to focus on improving yourself. Once we reach the village, I'll teach you some jutsus to make you stronger. Yes. Oh, by the way, Tsunade, her sensory abilities seem quite strong. Back in Hidden Grass Village, others didn't notice me, but she was the first to detect me underground. Just now, she also sensed you before I did. She reminded her. Sensory abilities. I'll keep an eye on that. Anything else? Tsunade asked. Her chakra control is excellent. She picked up the transformation jutsu instantly, showing good comprehension. Her physique is also very strong. She reminds me a bit of Kushina. She listed the details one by one. Oriri remained silent on the side. Kushina. Of course, she knew of her. A clanswoman chosen as a Jinchuriki. She had once admired her, yet she never wanted to be her, because being a Jinchuriki was a tragic fate. She never wanted to be one. Kushina, huh? Tsunade's expression grew complicated, and she let out a long sigh. She had always admired Kushina. Unfortunately, the role of a Jinchuriki limited her. Tsunade looked at Oriri, a different emotion flickering in her gaze. She had taken a liking to this girl. Hearing Koichi's assessment, she felt that Oriri might even be able to inherit her jutsus and become an outstanding medical ninja in the future. Of course, that would require Oriri to overcome her psychological barriers. Let's go. You can take a bath at my place first. Okay. Your place? Fine. If I'm not around, it's yours then. Koichi internally grumbled. Just as he was about to leave, Tsunade shot him a look, stopping him. Bringing an Anbu ninja into the village wasn't something anyone would question. They returned home without any trouble. Not much had changed in the house. The walls had been repaired, but compared to previous destruction, this damage was relatively mild. It was clear that Tsunade and Kushina had been sparring quite a bit in the courtyard lately. Koichi was speechless and chose to pretend he hadn't noticed. Once Oriri went to bathe, Tsunade finally asked, "Don't worry, I won't let that old bastard get his hands on her. But about the front lines, are you sure sneaking into Hidden Grass Village to take her won't cause any issues?" "It won't. We've withdrawn from the Land of Grass." "Huh? What happened?" Tsunade was taken aback. She hadn't received this intel at all. After all, frontline reports had yet to reach her, and Koichi's main body hadn't used Katsu to inform her in the past 2 days either. Koichi's shadow clone explained the plan to her in a low voice. At first, Tsunade frowned, but after listening carefully, she thought for a while before nodding. This strategy is indeed feasible. If you can pass through Hidden Waterfall Village and reach Anuki's rear, it might seriously cripple Hidden Stones Village. The main body and Jiraiya went to ambush the explosion core. That mission should be foolproof. Koichi's shadow clone spoke confidently. What he didn't know was that the main body had not only ambushed the explosion core but also captured the Four Tails Jinchuriki, Rashi, and, in passing, managed to throw out Anuki's back again. Of course, Kleichi didn't have confirmation of Anoki's back injury. He just guessed it based on the fact that Anoki didn't manage to catch up. After reading the frontline report, Tsunade furrowed her brows even tighter and immediately summoned a Katsu clone to verify the details. Minutes later, new intelligence arrived. Tsunade scanned the document. It didn't include many specifics, just a brief mention of infiltrating the land of Earth, slaying numerous enemy ninjas, and capturing a four-tails Jinchuriki. But from the battle report, all she could see was one thing: reckless fighting. You bastard. Tsunade, if you're going to hit someone, hit the main body. I'm just a shadow clone, I shouldn't have to take the punch. Kleichi's shadow clone immediately tried to escape. Tsunade snapped, stand still. If I hit you, that idiot will feel it too, it's the same effect. It's not the same. I didn't do anything, so why should I take the hit for my main body? The shadow clone protested. He was innocent. Stand still. Tsunade, furious, didn't care about reasoning anymore. Taking on a Jinchuriki head-on. And in the land of Earth, no less. Did he have a death wish? Tsunade, I'll visit you next time. I'll take my leave now, please say goodbye to Oriri for me. The shadow clone gave a wave and, poof. A burst of chakra fluctuation, and the shadow clone dispersed itself. Tsunade had nowhere to vent her frustration, leaving her with a belly full of pinned-up anger. Unfortunately, Kleichi had escaped too fast. Inside the house, Oriri secretly peeked through the bathroom's small window. Seeing Kleichi disappear, she leaned on the windowsill, a trace of reluctance and newfound resolve on her face. There are good people in Hidden Leaf Village after all. Ugh. Kleichi, currently leading Asuma and the others on patrol and training, suddenly felt an intense backlash from the shadow clone. It had lasted over a full day. If he weren't physically strong, he might have fainted on the spot. Sensei? It's nothing, just a sudden headache. Let's head back. Kleichi rubbed his temples. Obirama was right to classify multi-shadow clone jutsu as a forbidden jutsu. For the average person, overusing it could genuinely cause sudden death. This backlash alone could have knocked out anyone else. Then again, most people's shadow clones probably wouldn't last that long anyway. Still, it wasn't without rewards. Uzumaki Oriri views you as her life mentor. Reward: increased vitality, vitality increase. Kleichi hadn't expected that saving Uzumaki Oriri would earn him such a reward. He decided to claim it once he got back to camp. Upon returning, he activated the reward and immediately felt a noticeable increase in his vitality. His body strength also showed slight improvement as a result. Though the boost wasn't massive, it was a passive enhancement. The key factor is still vitality. No matter how much you have, it's never enough, just look at Hashirama-senju. Seems like next time, I should find a way to test it on Nagato. Kleichi mused to himself. Up until now, he had only interacted with Hueco. Even Conan was just incidental, and he had barely spoken with Nagato at all. Next time, he needed to find a way to get to know him. It wouldn't do to be limited to just Hueco. After returning to the village, he could expand in other directions as well. But for now, the key issue was still Hidden Stones Village and Anoki. At the moment, the Hidden Stones Village nin were sticking together, continuously using Earth-style to construct defensive fortifications along the borders of the Land of Grass and the Land of Fire. A sneak attack was no longer feasible. As for the Kuza nin, the Hidden Stones Village nin showed them no mercy. Any hard labor or dangerous tasks, they had to do them all. Refuse? Get beaten. The Kuza nin were now experiencing firsthand the difference between Hidden Leaf Villages and Hidden Stones Villages' definitions of ally. And they were regretting it to no end. Many of them secretly resented their leader for not agreeing to help Hidden Leaf Village. The leader had no response. Hidden Leaf Village's ninja, meanwhile, were thoroughly enjoying the show, watching from the sidelines with great satisfaction. Slack off before? Now you're paying for it. Sure, it was technically aiding the enemy, but considering the kind of people the Kuzanin were, they deserved some punishment. They were disgusting as allies, much better to deal with them as enemies. Only a few felt this approach was inappropriate. For example, Danzo. But he didn't dare to stick around here right now. The third Hokage was too dominant. After the last verbal lashing, he had lost all face. At this moment, he was desperate for the third to lose a battle, just to prove himself right. However, he was completely unaware of the full extent of the third and Kleichi's plan. At this moment, Jiraiya had traveled east to meet with Orochimaru and Minato Namikaze for a discussion. Sensei, now that you're here, does the Hokage have any specific orders? He does, but they're not from the old man, they're from Kleichi. Oh? Orochimaru glanced up, his interest piqued. If the orders were from the old man, he could guess what they were without even looking. But if they were from Kleichi, Then perhaps there was something interesting in store. Jiraiya pulled out a scroll. On it was the general strategic plan written by the third Hokage. Orochimaru leaned in for a look, then licked his lips in excitement. The essence of warfare is using the many to overwhelm the few. Tenshinhan's strategy, I quite approve. Maneuver warfare, deep penetration, flanking maneuvers. Minato analyzed it carefully. This strategy seemed to follow the same vein as the one used to defeat Hidden Mist Village before. However, this time, it was grander in scale. He thought for a moment and said, to execute this, the team must have both strong assault capabilities and high mobility. The best choices would be those who excel in both. Exactly. Tenshin mentioned this as well. The penetration team must be flexible and fast, otherwise, a flanking maneuver could turn into a counter-encirclement. Jiraiya nodded. Tenshin had given special emphasis to this point. In that case, Minato will have to lead the team himself. Minato, you'll execute this mission. You get first pick of the personnel. There's only one requirement, you must complete the mission. Orochimaru issued the order without hesitation. He had briefly considered leading the team himself. Speed? He could manage that. But when it came to dealing with those old tortoises from Hidden Stones Village, his offensive capabilities weren't quite up to the task. Hey, I'm the battlefield commander here. Jiraiya objected. Hey. Then you do it. Ahem. Minato, go ahead and pick your team. This mission is yours now. Also, Tenshin said that if things don't go well, don't fight to the death. There's no need to get entangled in a life-or-death struggle with the Hidden Stones Village Inn. If this plan doesn't work out, just pull back and regroup, we'll hit Hidden Clouds Village instead. Jiraiya relayed the message. Orochimaru narrowed his eyes. Well. So there was another move in play? Pulling back to attack Hidden Clouds Village instead. That possibility hadn't even crossed his mind. He had been fully focused on coordinating against Hidden Stones Village. But now that Jiraiya had pointed it out, he immediately understood the true essence of maneuver warfare, flexibility, not being confined to a fixed strategy, adjusting actions according to the situation. That was what made it maneuver. After thinking it over, he didn't change his decision. Instead, he simply patted Minato on the shoulder and said, don't fixate on any single target. This kind of tactic requires adaptability. As long as you can maneuver the enemy and create localized numerical advantages, it's enough. Understood. Minato had already grasped a vague idea, but with Orochimaru's clarification, everything clicked into place. Even if his team couldn't inflict significant casualties, they could still distract and pull enemy forces away, creating an opening for Hidden Leaf Village's main forces. And perhaps, a small pursuit force wasn't necessarily at a disadvantage, it might even turn the tables and take down isolated enemies. However, as he went outside to select his team, Minato recalled a major concern. What about Obito and the others? The battlefield was ruthless. Obito had matured quite a bit over the past weeks, but he was still far from elite. The same went for Rin. Among the three of them, only Kakashi barely met the standard. Not just because Kakashi was stronger, but also because he wielded both lightning style and earth style. Lightning style countered earth style, while earth style could be crucial for survival and escape. Obito and Rin fell short in those aspects. Minato hesitated, but soon, an image of Koichi surfaced in his mind. If it were him, he would make the decision without hesitation. He walked over to the three of them. Obito, Rin, for now, you two will be under my sensei's guidance. Huh? Sensei, is there a mission? A new battle plan? I can't share the details, but the requirements are extremely high, even Kakashi barely qualifies. So, there's no choice. Minato ruffled Obito's hair. Obito, while we're gone, make sure to take care of Rin. Obito glanced at Rin, then nodded firmly. Yes, Minato-sensei. As expected. As long as Rin was involved, this kid would quickly forget everything else. It felt a little underhanded to use this against him, but... Sorry, Obito. Minato silently apologized in his heart, then left with Kakashi. Obito, this mission is really dangerous for them. Yeah. Next time, we'll definitely become strong enough to earn Sensei's recognition too. Obito nodded. He had actually wanted to say, once the war is over, let's go back and ask Koichi for training. But before the words left his mouth, something felt off, so he wisely kept quiet. Rin was unaware of his thoughts and simply nodded earnestly. Chapter 129, Uzumaki Mido, yes, I said it all. Koichi-sama. Onoki is about to launch an attack. Let's try again. Roshi's brow furrowed slightly when he heard the subtle sound. Try again? He was puzzled for a moment. Then, He saw the door outside being pushed open as Kelechi walked in. Rashi understood. They wanted to extract intelligence from him? He remained silent. Only when he was escorted out of the camp and brought to the familiar mountain did he finally speak. I know the Yamanaka clan of Hidden Leaf Village can extract fragments of memory, but if you're expecting me to willingly give up information, you can keep dreaming. That's just the official narrative. Kelechi spoke calmly. In reality, I just wanted to have a private conversation with you. Rashi couldn't quite figure out his intent, but his guard was raised even higher. A senior in my clan was once a Jinchuriki as well. She used to say that living as a Jinchuriki is never easy. They must endure more darkness, not just from the tailed beast, but from people as well. Rashi was momentarily lost in thought. The treatment of Jinchuriki in Hidden Stones Village wasn't the worst, but it wasn't great either. At the very least, under Anoki's leadership, they had never suffered a full-scale tailed beast rampage. However, he had heard of the incidents in Hidden Clouds Village and Hidden Sand Village, where tailed beasts had gone berserk. The Jinchuriki that came after were often treated with hostility by ignorant villagers, feared and hated as if they were monsters. Thinking of this, a sense of shared resentment welled up inside him. With a sneer, he said, those people don't dare face the tailed beasts, but they have no problem bullying the ones keeping them in check. How ridiculous. Exactly. You protect them, yet they turn their greatest hostility toward you. They act arrogant in front of you, and in those moments, they suddenly find the courage they never had before, as if they're no longer afraid of the power of the tailed beasts. Kelechi chuckled coldly. Do you know why? Rashi thought for a moment, then shook his head. Because Jinchuriki are still human. And humans, at their core, tend to be kind. That's why they're not afraid. Kelechi added with a smirk, oh, and that's something my clan senior once said as well. Rashi frowned and mulled over those words. The more he thought about them, the more he realized this senior of Kelechi's was a person of great wisdom, and also a Jinchuriki. A trace of respect rose within him as he asked, may I know this senior's name? There's no need to keep it a secret. Hidden Leaf Village's Jinchuriki lineage has always been passed down within the same bloodline. Her name was Uzumaki Mido, and I carry the blood of the Senju. So it was her. Rashi had certainly heard of her. Uzumaki Mido. The wife of Senju Hashirama, this was what she was best known for. But to think that she also spoke such words of wisdom. No wonder she was the wife of the god of shinobi. Rashi felt genuine admiration. Can you tell me more about her? I won't betray my village, but I can exchange my own research in return. Rashi offered. Of course. Kelechi accepted without hesitation. After all, there were countless famous sayings in his past life. Every one of them could be attributed to Uzumaki Mido. After a brief pause, he continued, she had a dream, that Jinchuriki would one day receive the respect they deserve. She had a dream, that one day, a Jinchuriki could become the leader of a village. She had a dream, that one day, the shinobi world would no longer need Jinchuriki, and peace would prevail. Rashi was shaken. Every one of those dreams was grand, encompassing the plight of all Jinchuriki rather than just her own. He had never considered such ideals before. When he was discriminated against, all he thought about was himself. Compared to her, he felt utterly lacking. With a sigh, Han muttered, as expected of the god of shinobi's wife, she was just as noble as him. I doubt I could ever reach that level of enlightenment. Her dream. No, it wasn't realized, was it? It was too difficult. Even the first dream wasn't achieved, not even in Hidden Leaf Village. As someone who inherits her will, I want to change this, but in Hidden Leaf Village, I can't. Kelechi spoke heavily. Rashi let out a deep sigh. This is nothing more than a dream. It's impossible. That depends on people's efforts. Kelechi didn't press the conversation any further. Instead, he leaned back and found a place to sit, looking as if he was truly just taking a break. Leave it at that. He had already steered Rashi's thoughts in the desired direction. Any more words would be redundant, it was better to let Han reflect on his own. A stubborn man like him would only trust his own conclusions. Rashi's mind was in turmoil. He wasn't naive enough to believe Kelechi had no ulterior motives, but the words still resonated with him. Jinchuriki should receive the respect they deserve. Yes. That was his very own belief. He might not be as profound or selfless as Uzumaki Mido, but he was willing to fight for this cause. With newfound resolve, Han said, you possess the chakra of the four tails. As an exchange, I'll share my research on lava style with you. No need. I was just speaking my mind. And if you ever return to Hidden Stones Village or even Defect, and you manage to accomplish what I spoke of, that would be the greatest reward. Kelechi sighed. No, this is my promise. Besides, I could never accomplish that much. As Rashi spoke, He began explaining the principles of lava style. He truly had mastered it. Although he had derived it from analyzing the tailed beast's abilities, he had still achieved full mastery. And now, he was openly sharing his knowledge, explaining the intricacies of its usage. Kleichi couldn't help but recall a classic phrase from his past life, "Look at that. He is even thanking me for it." And that wasn't all. Objective completed, guidance on life ideals, evaluation, excellent, reward, tailed beast transformation, tailed beast transformation. He had already attempted it once before. What was the point of this reward? Curious, Kleichi quietly claimed the reward. While listening to Roshi's explanation of lava style, he simultaneously examined the effects of the reward. After reviewing it, he understood. This reward strengthened his ability to control tailed beast chakra. Unfortunately, Roshi was too stubborn. If not for invoking Uzumaki Mido's name, the outcome wouldn't have been nearly as effective. And because of that, part of the reward had been siphoned off to Mido. Technically speaking, Roshi should now see Kleichi as his life mentor. Well, you win some, you lose some. Kleichi consoled himself. But after a moment, he didn't mind as much. Because upon reflection, Roshi's abilities were already quite limited. There wasn't much else to exploit from him. Losing a reward wasn't a big deal. Besides, Roshi had willingly given up his lava-style jutsus. As Kleichi listened, he began to ponder. He didn't possess fire or earth chakra, but could he store borrowed tailed beast chakra and release it when needed? Perhaps it was possible. However, if he wanted to do that, a single yin seal wouldn't be enough. Kleichi felt a bit regretful. The yin seal was unique, it couldn't be replicated elsewhere on the body. That meant he only had one storage pool for chakra. If that limitation didn't exist, he'd have considered creating multiple storage seals. After Roshi finished explaining, Kleichi didn't immediately escort him back. He truly allowed him to take a break for half an hour. Only when Anbu arrived did he finally return Roshi to the main camp for sealing. Roshi didn't resist. It seemed he had truly found a sense of direction. Even as he was being taken away, he remained deep in thought, like a scholar contemplating a profound idea. Kleichi had no idea which path Roshi would choose. But, no matter which direction he took, the outcome would ultimately work against other villages. Hidden Leaf Village's Jinchuriki might not have complete freedom, but at most, Kushina would only be barred from becoming Hokage. Love and friendship, however, were things she had in abundance. She was happy. No matter how one looked at it, Roshi would never do something that would put Hidden Leaf Village in danger. They couldn't just release him. If they sent him back, Onoki would undoubtedly be suspicious. Keeping him locked up until the war was over was the best option. Kleichi left the camp and resumed patrolling the border. Kleichi-sama, those things you said to the Jinchuriki. Were they really Mido-sama's words? An Anbu member caught up with him. Naturally, Kleichi hadn't taken Roshi out alone, there had always been Anbu watching from the shadows. Kohinata Mukai had activated his Byakugan and remained stationed in case Roshi tried to escape, though Roshi's chakra had been drained so he hadn't noticed. Mukai was deeply moved by the conversation. Even now, he was still reflecting on it. Why do you ask? Those ideas apply to more than just Jinchuriki. The Hyuga clan's branch members also long for respect. No one wants to live under a caged bird seal, where their life can be taken at any moment. Mukai sighed. Kleichi was the only person he could confide in. Respect, leadership, a world where the branch family was no longer needed. Many of Mido's ideals resonated with the Hyuga clan's struggles. Hearing them had stirred something deep within him. Think of it this way, it could be Mido-sama's words, or it could be Hashirama-sama's. Kleichi smiled. Philosophical speeches. It didn't really matter who said them. What mattered was the truth behind them. Mukai immediately understood. So it was all Kleichi-sama's words. He was filled with admiration and bowed deeply. Then, with a sigh, he said, I thought I had secretly learned a lot. But now I realize, I've only scratched the surface of your wisdom. Not at all. I just have a little knowledge in many areas. If you ask me to go deeper, I wouldn't have much to offer. Kleichi's words were sincere. But no one believed him, certainly not Mukai. Kleichi took the opportunity to check on Mukai's progress in learning sealing jutsus. Mukai didn't hide anything and honestly explained the issues he had encountered recently. Kleichi helped solve a few of his problems, and Mukai was sincerely grateful. Unfortunately, he still didn't offer anything in return. Kleichi sighed but wasn't too surprised. Mukai's biggest concern remained the Hyuga clan's branch family and his own personal situation. Until he fully mastered the four symbols seal, he wouldn't truly open his heart and regard Kleichi as a mentor. However, at least there was no longer any risk of him betraying the village and leaking information to other villages as he had in the original timeline. Back then, He had done so because he had no hope. But now, Kleichi and Tsunade had given him hope. He had no reason to act against the village anymore. Though he empathized with the branch family's struggles, he wasn't a branch member himself. Kleichi shifted his focus back to the Hidden Stones village Inn. For the past few days, Onoki had been focused on fortifying their defenses. By now, their stronghold was practically impenetrable, with a dense arrangement of outposts and sentries. Infiltrating and assassinating key targets would be extremely difficult. At that moment, Mukai spoke up. Kleichi-sama, I conducted some reconnaissance yesterday and discovered that the Hidden Stones village Nin are not the ones manning the front lines. Most of the dangerous fortifications were actually built by Hidden Grass Village. Not surprising. Onoki is nothing like our Hokage. Kleichi chuckled. Mukai remained silent. Although he agreed completely, this wasn't a topic he could openly discuss. The reason Kuzunin can keep switching sides is simply that no one bothers to deal with them. But when the major powers on both sides decide to act, the only thing they'll be able to do is choose where to scatter their seeds. The Hidden Grass Village used to have a choice. Mukai pondered this statement, comparing it to his own experiences, and felt an understanding emerge. If Hidden Grass Village had genuinely allied with Hidden Leaf Village from the start, the final outcome could have been very different. Kleichi's strategy wouldn't have unfolded the way it did. A counterattack? That was just a way to pressure the Kuzunin into submission. Mukai didn't know what Kleichi's real plan was, but he was sure of one thing: he definitely wouldn't launch an all-out assault on the land of Earth. Let's go. At most, in 2 days, Onoki won't be able to hold back any longer. Chapter 130, Earth-Style Trench Warfare. Lightning-Style, Kirin. The current situation in the east was still unknown. Although Jiraiya had gone there, no intelligence had been sent back yet. Of course. If Jiraiya and Minato had any sense, the best choice wouldn't be to send a ninja with a scroll but to deliver one of Minato's Flying Thunder God kunai instead. As long as they had the kunai, they could receive Minato's reports at any time. Meanwhile, Minato had already selected a team from the eastern front and was setting out to flank the enemy from behind in the land of waterfalls, targeting the back of the Hidden Grass Village. The squad was made up of elite ninjas. Among them were Hyuga Hizashi, Aburame-shibi, and others. The weakest member was probably Kakashi, but since he specialized in lightning style, he had the advantage of speed, which was effective against earth-style jutsus. Jiraiya had arranged for the delivery of 2 Flying Thunder God kunai along with a report. With the kunai in place, Minato could pinpoint the location, transmit information, and even gain partial insight into Hidden Leaf Village's main camp intelligence through sensory tracking. Most of the fast-moving ninjas had been sent with Minato. However, Jiraiya left behind a formidable one. Might Nui. The one entrusted with delivering the kunai and intelligence was Might Nui. He did not accompany Minato. Though powerful, once he activated the 6th gate or higher, he would be left too exhausted to continue fighting. While he had also achieved mastery of the 8 gates, like his future son, Gai, the difference was substantial. Gai had the advantage of learning from predecessors, while Dewey had to figure things out on his own. Additionally, their ages at peak strength were different. Dewey's recovery abilities were significantly inferior. Thus, he wasn't suited for deep infiltration missions. After some consideration, Orochimaru decided that Dewey was better suited to accompany Kleichi. Joining him for the escort mission were Obito, Rin, and the trio from Gai's squad. Since Minato had reassigned Hayama Shirakumo to an elite unit, Gai's team had no Jonin leader and had to be reassigned here. The 6-man group moved quickly. They reached Hidden Leaf Village's western camp in just 1 day. However, in that single day, Onoki had already begun his assault. "Sensei, aren't you going to organize a counterattack this time?" Asuma asked curiously. He expected Kleichi to charge in alone again, slashing through enemies with guerrilla tactics like before, but instead, they were still observing. Wait a little longer. Using chakra sensory jutsus, Kleichi scanned the area. Hidden Stones Village Nin had launched their attack. However, Onoki wasn't rushing an all-out invasion. Instead, he was methodically pushing Hidden Stones Village Nin's defensive lines outward with Earth style, as if he planned to use fortifications to slowly erode the border. It was slow but incredibly difficult to counter. Onoki is too cautious. Even if we form an elite squad, it will be hard to gain an advantage against so many Hidden Stones Village Nin. Too bad my lightning style isn't strong enough. Shishui was frustrated. If his lightning style was more advanced, he could use the thunder swords to devastate Onoki's earth-style defenses. Unfortunately, his lightning style was only mediocre, not even at an excellent level. Kleichi glanced at the darkened sky. He paused for a moment, and a certain jutsu came to mind. Lightning style, Kirin. The jutsu utilized natural lightning by creating a stormy environment and then guiding the lightning precisely with the Sharingan and lightning style. Shisui certainly couldn't manage it. However, he remembered that the third Hokage was a master of all 5 chakra natures, proficient in every elemental jutsu. If Sarutobi worked together with the Hyuga clan's observational skills, they could use this jutsu to bombard Hidden Stone's village's earth fortifications. Of course. Technically, Shisui could also pull it off. But first, he was still young and might not execute it with enough precision. Second, if he successfully performed such a high-level jutsu, the existing hostility toward the Uchiha clan would only deepen. The third Hokage was the best candidate. With that thought, Keiichi waved his hand and said, "Let's go back." Yes. Asuma didn't know what his sensei had planned, but judging by Keiichi's expression, Hidden Stone's village nin were about to suffer again. Back at the main camp, I think we should counter with Earth style. If we engage in mutual destruction, we won't stand a chance against Hidden Stone's village's Earth style specialists. There are just too many Hidden Stone's village nin skilled in Earth style. The third Hokage was discussing strategy with Asuma and several Sarutobi clan jonin. Honestly, he preferred consulting Keiichi, as the boy's thought process was completely different from theirs and often led to unexpected yet effective ideas. But unfortunately, when he sent someone to find Keiichi, he was already out scouting. Just as they were about to form an Earth-style squad to disrupt Hidden Stone's village's defenses, a Chunin rushed in with a report. Keiichi had returned. "Hokage-sama. Keiichi, do you have an idea?" The third Hokage's eyes lit up as soon as he saw him. This kid always walked with a commanding presence. Clearly, he had a plan. Keiichi nodded. "I have a rough idea I'd like to discuss. Their Earth-style fortifications are densely packed. What if we use lightning style to break them?" Lightning style. It's a good idea, but we don't have enough lightning style users, and we can't destroy that many earth walls at once. The third Hokage sighed. He had considered this before, but the difference in numbers was overwhelming. Hidden Stone's village had thousands of ninja, while Hidden Lee village had far fewer lightning style users. Even if they focused all their efforts, they couldn't cause enough destruction. We can create natural lightning through ninjutsu. I can use water style, others can use fire style to heat and evaporate water into the air, generating clouds that interact with the atmosphere to form natural lightning. Keiichi explained quickly. Then, the Hyuga clan can monitor and observe, while you use the thunder swords to guide the lightning with precision. Lightning forms and strikes too quickly. By the time the Hyuga report its location, it might be too late. However, if we only need to direct it toward Hidden Stone's village's fortifications, that's doable. The third Hokage considered it. The hardest part of this jutsu was guiding the lightning accurately. But since the enemy's fortifications were clustered together, there was little risk of missing the target. The weather is perfect for this. "Hokage-sama, should we test it first?" Sarutobi Shinosuke was concerned. Natural lightning was no joke. If anything went wrong, even the third Hokage wouldn't be able to withstand it. The third Hokage shook his head. "There's no time. If we conduct a test, Onoki will notice something is off, and we'll lose the element of surprise." "Yes, I'll make the arrangements immediately." Everyone sprang into action. Moments later, Hidden Lee village's main camp mobilized. Meanwhile, in Hidden Stone's village as Camp Tsuchikage-sama, Hidden Lee village is making a move. Ha, so Sarutobi Hiruzen finally lost patience. "No rush. We'll stay defensive. The longer they wait, the more mistakes they'll make." Despite his calm words, Onoki immediately flew out of his tent and positioned himself atop the frontline earth walls. He peered into the distance. Sure enough, birds were circling in alarm. "Everyone, stay alert. The Sarutobi clan excels in all 5 nature transformations. They might be leading the charge. Also, be prepared for water-style attacks." "Yes, Tsuchikage-sama. We've already dug trenches. Even if they use water style, it will be diverted." "Good. If we can withstand this, we can keep advancing using this strategy." Onoki was excited. A battle against water-style specialists. That was exactly what he wanted. He watched expectantly. Moments later, he spotted a silver-haired young ninja in a mask. "That must be Keiichi." Onoki narrowed his eyes. "Be careful of that one. He's young, but incredibly dangerous." "Yes." The Hidden Stone's village nin braced themselves. And then, Keiichi led the charge. Dozens of Hidden Lee village shinobi surged forward from their ranks, and behind them, thousands more followed, a dark wave stretching beyond the horizon. Onoki couldn't immediately decipher their formation, but he had a nagging sense that something was off. Before he could figure out what, Keiichi had already made his move. Hand seals, jutsu activation. Exploding water shockwave, water colliding wave. A barrage of water-style jutsus. The most alarming part? On both sides, towering earth walls shot up. Boom. The sound of rushing water roared, no longer just a simple wave but an entire river, carrying debris and sediment as it surged toward Hidden Stone's village's fortifications. But was that all? Onoki was puzzled. This level of force was a threat, sure, but with their prior preparations, as long as they reinforced their defenses with earth style, there was no way this attack could breach their stronghold. And indeed, that's exactly what they did. The incoming waves were quickly diverted, channeled into the trenches they had dug earlier. However, what happened next left Onoki utterly bewildered. The second act of Hidden Leaf Village's grand performance unfolded. A second wave of shinobi rushed in, hundreds of them, each unleashing fire-style jutsu, heating the flowing river with intense flames, some even targeting the sky. From the rear, numerous shinobi cast Great Breakthrough, a contingency Koichi had devised with the third Hokage, designed to direct the resulting air currents toward the Hidden Stones village encampment above. Tsuchikage-sama, what are they doing? I don't know, but this doesn't feel right. Onoki frowned. There was no way Hidden Leaf Village had mobilized over 1,000 shinobi just to put on a fireworks display. Something was off. His instincts screamed at him. He scanned the battlefield, feeling uneasy, then raised his hand and commanded, "Let's play it safe. Order the main force to retreat to the second defensive line. Leave a small unit here to observe." "Yes, sir." Onoki's instincts had always been sharp. Koichi sensed the enemy's withdrawal and felt a tinge of disappointment, but he knew better than to expect this jutsu to take down Onoki. That old man wasn't that easy to deal with. He looked up at the sky, formed hand seals, and released a dense mist, which was swiftly carried toward the Hidden Stones village encampment by wind style. Moments later, raindrops began to fall, pitter-patter, pitter-patter. Everything was in place. Now, it was up to the third Hokage. At that moment, from the rear, the third Hokage led a contingent of lightning-style shinobi, Shizui among them. In the Hokage's hands were two blades. They leaped onto an earthen platform erected by Hidden Leaf Village's earth-style users, channeling lightning-style chakra toward the Hokage. The third Hokage gripped his swords, now crackling with surging electricity. Thunder swords, Kiba. Be careful. The Hidden Stones village shinobi on watch duty sensed something was wrong. Their true attack was lightning-style. They quickly erected more earth walls to block it. But they never expected, the lightning-style attack wasn't aimed at them. It was aimed at the sky. Twin blades crackling with lightning shot a massive sphere of energy upward. In an instant, the entire sky erupted into a storm of raging thunder. Hokage-sama. I know. Chapter 131, Destruction. Combination ninjutsu lesson. The third Hokage exerted his full power, controlling and guiding the lightning he had unleashed. Then, crack. A roar echoed from the heavens, a cry like that of a mythical Kylan shaking the earth. Boom. A silver-white bolt of lightning tore through the sky. Guided by the lightning produced by lightning fang blades and the mist conjured by Koichi, streaks of lightning crashed down like descending Kylans, striking directly above the Hidden Stones village fortifications. Thunder cascaded through the mist, spreading its destructive force across the entire defensive line. Silver light flickered within the dense fog. The moment the lightning struck, the very ground trembled. Onoki and his forces, having just retreated to the rear, stood frozen in shock, cold sweat running down their backs. If they hadn't fallen back just in time. This jutsu. How does Hidden Leaf Village possess such terrifying lightning style? Damn it. Onoki was the first to snap out of it. This wasn't the time for shock or awe. The Hidden Stones village nin at the first defensive line were in danger. The lightning had struck there. Silver serpents of electricity slithered wildly. They could see the flickering arcs of lightning raging within the mist. This power was beyond human capability. Hidden Leaf Village had merely played a small role in triggering it. The true force at play was the power of nature itself. And Hidden Stones Village nin's greatest weakness was lightning style. Against it, they had no effective defense. But the most terrifying part? Hidden Leaf Village was still summoning more lightning. Boom. Another bolt struck, this time slightly off target, hitting the area between the first and second defensive lines, still wreaking havoc on their formations. Some Hidden Stones Village nin were injured in the blast. Retreat. Onoki roared. This was unsustainable. They had no idea how many more times Hidden Leaf Village could redirect the lightning. Staying put would mean waiting to be struck again, suffering pointless casualties. Retreating was the only viable option. But he didn't know that Hidden Leaf Village had already reached their limit. Hokage-sama, the storm clouds above are starting to dissipate. If we keep guiding the lightning, it might strike us instead. Daichi cautioned. Precision control was crucial for this jutsu. He could tell that the third Hokage had intended for the second bolt to hit Hidden Stones Village's second defensive line, but it had veered off course, only managing to strike between the two front lines. It had still caused damage, but only marginally. And with the updrafts stirring above them, lightning was beginning to form naturally within their own storm clouds. Any further attempts to direct it could result in friendly fire. That's enough. The third Hokage nodded, signaling for everyone to dispel their jutsus and spread out. The mist cleared. At the site of Hidden Stones Village's fortifications, what had once been towering earthen walls had been reduced to rubble under the force of the lightning strikes. Some walls still stood, but they were cracked and brittle, one kick would send them crumbling. And scattered along the ramparts. Charred corpses. A decisive victory. Using lightning style like this. Daichi, you really are a genius. The third Hokage sighed in admiration. Never had he imagined that lightning style could be combined with coordinated ninja efforts and natural forces to create such a devastating jutsu. A combined super jutsu, a weapon of war. Unfortunately, executing it perfectly required extreme perception and dynamic vision. The Uchiha might be ideal for this. Even though Daichi had deliberately avoided mentioning it, the third Hokage, having performed the jutsu firsthand, immediately recognized how perfectly suited it was for the Uchiha. But after a moment's thought, he dismissed the concern. This jutsu had far too many limitations. Its reliance on weather conditions was excessively strict. If the enemy anticipated it, they could counter it using various methods to redirect the lightning. For Hidden Stones Village, though, that would be tricky. Most Hidden Stones Village nin specialized in earth style. They had a decent number of fire and water style users, but lightning style was scarce among them. Sensei, if we encounter similar weather conditions in the future, can we use this jutsu against Hidden Stones Village again? Asuma asked. As a wind style user, he had also played a role in setting up the jutsu. That depends on whether Onoki can figure out a countermeasure. Daichi replied. The best counter Hidden Stones Village could deploy would be using conductive structures, like lightning rods, to direct the strikes away. It all depended on whether Onoki could realize that in time. If he did, pulling off this jutsu again would be far more difficult. For now, this victory should buy us some time. Onoki won't dare advance again until he finds a solution. Let's go. We're heading back. Yes. With a collective flicker, the group vanished, retreating toward the main encampment. On the way back, Daichi glanced at his system interface. Just moments ago, he had received a notification. Checking it. As expected. Reward. But this reward is a bit Chidori. Kakashi's signature jutsu. The problem is, I don't even know lightning style. So, on the way back, Daichi figured it was time to prioritize his experiments on storing lightning style chakra with the yin seal. If he could refine the absorption and sealing of elemental chakra, then his inability to use lightning and fire style might not be such a disadvantage anymore. But there was one issue. If he used a yin seal to absorb lightning style chakra, what about tailed beast chakra? The chakra of the four tails was a valuable resource. He wasn't about to waste it. Sigh. Why can't I have two yin seals? Or, if I can get familiar enough with lightning style chakra, I might be able to use Saimata to absorb it and immediately redirect it for an attack. But wielding Saimata with one hand meant he'd have to cast jutsu with just the other. That would make things difficult. Still, the advantage of Chidori lay in its many variations. Chidori Stream, Chidori Sharp Spear, Chidori Blade. All of them were viable in close combat. This could work. Daichi's heart stirred with excitement. He'd test it out with Shizui as soon as he got back. Border of the Land of Grass. Upon learning of Hidden Leaf Village's retreat, Onoki led his Hidden Stones Village nin back, only to find their fortifications in ruins and scorched corpses scattered everywhere. The sight tore at his heart. Tsuchikage-sama, most of the earth walls are unusable. I see. Onoki's mood was grim. He didn't fear losses. But this kind of loss, one with no way to counter, was a first. Even so, the others still greatly respected him. If not for his keen perception, they wouldn't have lost just a few squads. There could have been far more casualties. Father, I never expected Hidden Leaf Village to have such a terrifying lightning-style jutsu. If not for your quick thinking, we would have suffered even worse. Kitsuchi, you don't need to comfort me. I'm not just mourning our fallen comrades, I blame myself. Even now, I have no idea how to counter Hidden Leaf Village's jutsu. Sigh, they've produced another genius. Onoki sighed. There were countermeasures, of course, but Hidden Stones Village simply wasn't equipped for them. Using wind style to disperse the electrical currents would be effective. However, Hidden Stone's village nin specializing in wind style were far fewer than Hidden Leaf villages. They couldn't count on that approach. Blocking the water? That was an even bigger joke. Water was just a medium, it didn't matter where it was. There was no doubt about it. This had to be Kazekage's handiwork. Perhaps we should launch a direct assault, prevent Hidden Leaf Village from setting up their lightning conductors. Kitsuchi suggested. Onoki shook his head. He had considered it. But Hidden Stone's village nin thrived in defensive warfare, utilizing fortifications for a war of attrition. If they abandoned their defensive strongholds, they'd be fighting Hidden Leaf Village head-on in open battle. That would make all their earthworks meaningless. For now, we'll withdraw. Hidden Leaf Village is likely waiting to see how Hidden Mist Village will respond in the east. We still have time, if necessary, we'll pull back completely. Onoki sighed again. This campaign against Hidden Leaf Village had felt off from the very beginning. From start to finish, Hidden Leaf Village had controlled the pace of the war. At least this lightning strike hadn't inflicted their heaviest losses, it was the Kuzunin who had been standing by, watching from the sidelines. Most of the Hidden Stone's village nin had managed to retreat in time. But the Kuzunin? No one had warned them. Thinking they were safe at the outskirts, they were caught completely off guard when the combination of lightning and mist electrocuted them en masse. Especially the second lightning strike, it had landed right where the Kuzunin nin had set up their defenses. Just 2 strikes had wiped out over 20 squads. For Hidden Stone's village, 20 teams were a drop in the bucket. For a small village like Hidden Grass Village, however, it was a national tragedy. In fact, the Hidden Grass Village leader was now facing a full-blown rebellion. Why didn't we ally with Hidden Leaf Village in the first place? If we had, none of this would have happened. Why are you all looking at me now? The Hidden Grass Village leader was utterly speechless. Hidden Leaf Village's main camp upon returning, the third Hokage immediately called for a debriefing. Kleichi had no choice but to stay behind. Kleichi, you've taught us all a valuable lesson. The third Hokage was the first to speak, sighing in admiration. On the battlefield, jutsu should be utilized in coordinated formations like this. I believe we should explore other possible combination jutsus as well. I agree. Yamanaka Inoyachi raised his hand in support. The Inoshikacho clan was famous for their coordinated jutsus, they knew better than anyone the power of teamwork. The others nodded in agreement. The usual combinations are lightning water and wind fire, but wind water also has potential. Sarutobi Shinosuke added. Though still a Nanbu, he had been speaking up more often in meetings lately. Kleichi, any thoughts? The third Hokage turned to him. There's a jutsu from Hidden Rain Village called Black Rain. It's a water-style variant that can be combined with fire-style to threaten Hidden Stone's village's fortifications. Alternatively, if we don't mind wasting supplies, we could use flower with wind and fire style. Kleichi proposed 2 options. These were fairly conventional strategies. Then, he turned to the Nara clan representatives. Your clan doesn't always have to coordinate with the Akimeki. Working with the Inuzuka or other speed-based shinobi could yield similar results. That makes sense. The others nodded thoughtfully. However, some were clearly confused. Flower? Combined with wind and fire? The third Hokage tilted his head slightly, then asked, how does that work? It doesn't have to be flour, any combustible dust will do, even sugar. If dispersed in the air at a high enough concentration, it can cause an explosion. Dust explosions. A simple principle. However, the shinobi world had yet to apply scientific research in this direction. Even Orochimaru and the third Hokage himself hadn't studied this concept, so many were skeptical. It's worth testing. But food is valuable, we can't afford to waste too much. The third Hokage thought it over, then decided the other jutsu seemed more practical. Hidden Rain Village's Black Rain is just a water-style derivative. That shouldn't be hard to replicate, I'll work on refining it and distributing it to our forces. No need, Lord Hokage. That jutsu. I've already studied it. Kleichi coughed lightly. No way was he going to let the Hokage take all the credit for this discovery. The third Hokage blinked in surprise, then quickly realized, you used this jutsu when capturing Hazuki Chikage, didn't you? Very well, write it down as a jutsu scroll. We'll disseminate it across the camp. Consider it an A-rank mission, you'll be well rewarded. Understood. Chapter 132, sometimes, lowering the barriers helps the rewards for an E-rank mission varied. As for Black Rain Jutsu, the key factor determining the reward was how effectively it could be combined with fire style. If the synergy was strong, the reward would naturally be higher. And as for the system, Kleichi had no intention of teaching the jutsu one by one. There were simply too many shinobi in Hidden Leaf Village, he couldn't possibly instruct them all individually. The best approach was to transcribe the jutsu onto a scroll and let the shinobi distribute, study, and teach it among themselves. After all, Black Rain Jutsu wasn't exactly some high-level secret jutsu. Kleichi didn't even need to leave his tent. He immediately wrote down the details of Black Rain Jutsu, along with its principles and various jutsus. He even included an analysis of how water style could be transformed into oil-based jutsus. Unfortunately, the oilification process of Black Rain Jutsu was still quite crude. If he wanted to reach the level of steaming danger tyranny, Jokey boy, more research was needed. Once he finished writing the scroll, he left the tent and sought out Shizui and Asuma. Sensei. It's fine. Just use a jutsu on me. Asuma, attack me with wind style first. Kleichi specifically told him not to use fire style. Last time, when he had Seimata absorb tailed beast chakra, the little guy sulked for days. It took multiple days of feeding it water style chakra before it calmed down. But in a way, this reassured Kleichi. Seimata clearly liked his chakra. As long as there weren't any unexpected circumstances, he didn't have to worry about it betraying him. However, other types of chakra? No problem. Asuma nodded, formed hand seals, and gathered his chakra. A moment later, he exhaled a vacuum wave. Kleichi swung Seimata. The wind-style chakra was instantly absorbed into the blade. But this time, it didn't dissolve into Seimata. Instead, the chakra immediately transferred to Kleichi himself. It worked. Kleichi quickly activated this newly acquired chakra. With his left hand, he drew his sword and slashed forward. ZZT, a faint sound. A narrow sword mark appeared on the ground. It worked. Asuma was even more excited than Kleichi. Absorbing and converting it into a jutsu, wind style worked, so in theory, lightning style should work too. However, Kleichi wasn't that optimistic. After thinking for a moment, he turned to Shizui. Try using lightning style. I only know ground current. That's fine, as long as it works. Kleichi nodded. If it were a stronger lightning style jutsu, he wouldn't dare let Shizui test it. Lightning chakra was notoriously volatile, and even he wasn't completely confident in handling it. Shizui formed hand seals, then pressed his hands to the ground, sending a current of electricity surging toward him. Seimata absorbed it again. The next moment, Kleichi drew his blade. ZZT. Lightning crackled around the blade, but it quickly dissipated. The amount of chakra transferred from ground current was too small. Even so, this at least proved that Kleichi's theory worked when combined with Seimata. But the jutsu required extremely precise chakra control, as well as a deep understanding of fire style and lightning style chakra properties. If it weren't for the system rewards that granted him experience with Chidori and lightning style nature transformation, he wouldn't have been able to execute it so quickly and proficiently. After all, mastering one's own chakra nature was already a difficult task. Using chakra one didn't naturally possess? Normally impossible. Sensei, how did you do that? Shizui was in disbelief. He had spent a long time just scratching the surface of lightning-style nature transformation, and ground current was one of the simplest lightning-style jutsus. If Kleichi had a lightning-style affinity, Shizui wouldn't have been so surprised. His teacher's talent was well known, and it wouldn't be shocking if he mastered lightning style. But he didn't. This isn't mastery, just a crude transfer and application. Kleichi shook his head. Chidori's lightning-style nature transformation focused on piercing power. But in truth, his slash didn't even utilize that. It was simply raw lightning-style chakra. Of course. That wasn't because he couldn't use it, Shizui had just provided too little chakra. It seemed that relying purely on absorbing chakra had its limitations. Kleichi temporarily shelved the experiment. The method was feasible, difficult, but not impossible. However, after considering everything, it could only serve as a temporary measure, not a consistent battle strategy, unless he absorbed chakra from his teammates. That was an option. But he couldn't expect his allies to recharge him at all times. It seemed he would have to explore the yin seal further. Tailed beast chakra. Could it be sealed elsewhere? Even if it couldn't be accessed instantly, temporary storage should be possible. It should work. If this theory was viable, who knew? Maybe one day, he could even create a pseudo-10-tails of his own. Kleichi entertained the thought. But that goal was far off. After all, combining the 9-tailed beast's chakra wasn't as simple as mixing them together to form 10 tails chakra. For now, it was just an idea, no need to rush into action. Sensei, what's the name of this jutsu we just used? Lightning style, Kirin. Kleichi didn't completely steal the jutsu, at the very least, he respected Sasuke's naming rights. Shizui sighed regretfully. Everyone could tell, this jutsu wasn't strictly a combination jutsu. It had the potential to be guided and executed by a single user. Unfortunately, Shishui's lightning style proficiency lagged far behind his fire style, wind style, and Ganjutsu. Otherwise, he might have pushed himself to see if he could perform it alone. If it's not your strength, there's no need to force it. Kleichi didn't want him to overthink it. Kakashi had multiple chakra natures, but he mainly focused on earth style and lightning style. Unless someone trained as hard as Kleichi, mastering everything was unrealistic. Shishui nodded. He understood the logic, he was just envious. The effects of lightning style, Kirin, were enough to make Onoki wary. At the very least, he wouldn't dare to recklessly push forward for a while. If he encountered a thunderstorm and got struck, all his efforts could go up in smoke. The Hidden Mist Village specialized in aggressive assaults. According to Onoki's calculations, the eastern front of Hidden Leaf Village was under immense pressure. In fact, Hidden Leaf Village might even have to pull reinforcements from the west. If that happened, then would be a real opportunity. Of course. That wasn't Onoki's original plan. His initial thought was to clash head-on with Hidden Leaf Village. But after witnessing this jutsu, he abandoned that idea. Under normal circumstances, a cautious approach was reasonable. What Onoki didn't expect, however, was that Hidden Leaf Village had already begun pulling elite ninja from the east, forming a squad to flank them from behind. After finishing his experiment, Kleichi took Asuma and the others on a patrol before returning to the main camp. He was just about to resume training them when he sensed several familiar chakra signatures. Might Dewey, Obito, Rin, and Might Guy? What the hell? Bringing the whole family? Kleichi was puzzled. Then a possibility crossed his mind. Could it be that after forming his elite squad, Minato sent the remaining fresh graduates to the Western Front? Did they think this side was a daycare or something? It wasn't long before he saw them approaching the camp, one after another. A Jonin vest. A full green bodysuit. Currently, only 2 people in the village dressed like that. One was Might Dewey. The other was Might Guy. However, the moment Kleichi saw the entire group, he realized he was wrong. It wasn't just the 2 of them. Obito was also wearing the bodysuit. As everyone's eyes focused on him, Obito's face turned red. He wanted to dig a hole and bury himself. Taking a deep breath, he kept telling himself, for the sake of getting stronger, this is worth it. Kleichi-sensei. I didn't expect you to personally escort them, Dewey-senpai. Ahem, Hokage-sama is over there. You can deliver the supplies first. I'll take care of them for now. Kleichi wasn't sure what to say. Enthusiasm was contagious. He never believed it before. But after seeing Obito, he almost believed it now. Yes, sir. Might Dewey saluted and left. Technically, he was a special Jonin, a rank below Kleichi. And more importantly, back on the Eastern Front, Kleichi had been the battle commander. Once Dewey left, Obito noticed Shishui and the others staring at him strangely. He covered his face, then, blushing furiously, muttered, I think this outfit is great for taijutsu combat. The atmosphere fell silent. A few seconds later, Kurenai whispered, Obito, no one said it wasn't. Be confident, young man. With this outfit, you too can master the 8 gates. Might Guy flashed his signature thumbs up and dazzling smile. Looking at Guy's expression, Obito suddenly realized, wearing this might have been a mistake. Even if it was breathable and flexible. It takes courage to wear that. At least it proves you've let go of a lot of unnecessary concerns. Kleichi patted his shoulder. Then, he led them into the camp. 5 rookies. So Kakashi was the only one taken by Minato? That explained it. No wonder Obito was willing to sacrifice his pride. Minato's choice must have stung. But Minato wasn't wrong. That elite squad wasn't a place for Obito. Even Kakashi barely qualified with his lightning style. Sensei, what's the situation here? What's our mission now? After settling in, Obito, unable to contain his curiosity, asked eagerly. Of course. The others were just as curious, but they managed to hold back their questions. Now that you're here, your job is to fight the Hidden Stones Village Inn. From now on, you're all under my command. During future battles, you must stay within my range, understood? Yes. The group responded with enthusiasm, looking as if they were ready to take on Hidden Stones Village Inn right then and there. Kleichi had a headache. If there were anywhere else to assign them, he would have gladly passed these kids off to someone else. But right now, in this camp, he was the most suitable person to take them in. He had the experience. He had the ability. The other Jonin already had their own subordinates to manage. Adding a few more kids to their squads would be too much. As for the Eastern Front, that was out of the question. With their elite forces pulled away, Hidden Leaf Village had to maintain enough combat strength to withstand Hidden Cloud's village's fierce assaults. Casualties were inevitable, which was precisely why these kids had been sent to the Western Front, where it was relatively safer. However, this situation wouldn't last long. If their plan succeeded, they would be able to inflict heavy losses on Hidden Stone's village Nin in a short time, forcing Onoki into negotiations. At that point, Hidden Leaf Village would regain the initiative. So, this was only temporary. He just had to treat it like the old days at the academy. Kleichi glanced at them. There won't be any battles for the next few days. What have you all been training recently? Taijutsu. Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu. How to awaken the Sharingan. Obito answered with complete seriousness. Shizue glanced at him, hesitating to mention that he'd accidentally awakened his Sharingan after being scared out of his wits not long ago. Chapter 133, Paper Jutsu plus Mutually Multiplying Explosive Tags. The Sharingan is indeed powerful, but if you put all your hopes on it, I can only call you useless. Sensei, I was just joking. I've actually been training in taijutsu lately. Obito coughed lightly. He really did want to awaken his Sharingan. Ever since this war started, it had been on his mind constantly, unlocking the Sharingan and turning things around. The words just slipped out. But rationally, he understood that hard work and training were the real path to strength. Your strengths lie in ninjutsu and speed. It's better to focus on developing those. Kleichi was blunt. Taijutsu? Better forget about it. Obito's taijutsu wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great either. At least, it had nothing to do with the 8 gates. If he seriously trained in that path, he might not even find the first gate. Yes. Obito blushed, realizing he had been grasping at straws. Of course, you still need to train in taijutsu. A strong body is the foundation of everything. After speaking, Kleichi had them demonstrate their training and gave each of them pointers. Might Guy and his teammates were relatively easy to handle. The real challenge was Obito and Rin. The war had been ongoing all year, leaving little time for proper teaching. Obito was one thing, but Rin. Medical ninjutsu required extensive knowledge. The constant battles meant she had no time to study and build up the necessary foundation. Many medical jutsu remained beyond her grasp. Recently, she had been focusing on the chakra scalpel. Kleichi had Kurenai provide her with one-on-one instruction. As for Obito, honestly, your best option is to study more, improve your theoretical knowledge. But this is the battlefield. There's no time for that, so I'll teach you Earth-style jutsu instead. It was always the same issue with Obito. His problem wasn't a lack of strength, it was a lack of knowledge and critical thinking. The title Uchiha Fool didn't come from nowhere. Among Hidden Leaf Village's 12 young warriors, only Choji had a wisdom stat of 2 at graduation. Even Naruto and Kiba had 3. That said a lot about Obito's academic performance and analytical skills. Thank you, sensei. Obito sat nervously, feeling like he was back in the academy. Kleichi gave him some casual guidance, which wasn't too difficult. Obito's intelligence was remarkable, but his talent in ninjutsu wasn't bad. Earth-style wall was a struggle. But Earth-style mud return? He picked it up quickly. Another Hidden Stones village jutsu required a bit more explanation, but after hearing it twice, he at least understood the basics. Of course. Kleichi knew that Obito had another talent, space-time ninjutsu. But that was a rare and extremely advanced field. Outside of summoning jutsu, there were only 2 well-known space-time jutsu, Flying Thunder God and Kami. Flying Thunder God, in particular, required extensive theoretical knowledge. If nothing else, you needed to understand jutsu formulas, right? Clearly. Obito wasn't ready for that. Right now, all Kleichi could do was sharpen their skills for the upcoming battles. He didn't expect them to achieve major breakthroughs, only to survive encounters with Hidden Stones Village's Chunin squads. Most of his training focused on survival jutsus. Except for Might Guy. That was tricky. Might Guy had dedicated himself to taijutsu since childhood. It wasn't that he couldn't use ninjutsu. In fact, he had the potential to learn it. His proficiency in ninjutsu and ganjutsu was at least average. But he had no interest in them. Even his father, Might Dewey, had given up on teaching him anything other than taijutsu. Instead, he had passed down nunchaku jutsus along with some combat awareness and ganjutsu breaking methods. Kleichi, on the other hand, decided to teach him body flicker jutsu. With his expertise in body flicker, training Might Guy was easy. After a day of practice, the sun began to set. They had a simple meal at camp. Kleichi originally planned to take them on another patrol, but then a messenger arrived, sent by the 3rd Hokage himself. Train on your own for now. Yes. Kleichi entered the command tent. Might Dewey stood to one side, scratching his head awkwardly. The third Hokage sat there, looking deeply troubled. Keiichi, Jiraiya is too unpredictable. We have Minato's flying thunder god kunai, but no one here can actually use the jutsu. How are we supposed to communicate with him? That was the problem plaguing the third Hokage. As for Minato's whereabouts, Might Dewey had just been promoted to Special Jonin, he wouldn't have any knowledge of the battle plans. Minato is meticulous. When the time is right, he'll use Flying Thunder God to send a toad here for communication. Keiichi wasn't worried. Minato was aware of his slug communication method. Sending a toad with a message was a simple matter. Nothing to stress over. I suppose that's our only option for now. The third Hokage sighed. He understood the logic. The problem was, it was unreliable. If they could maintain constant contact, they would always know Minato's position and adjust their strategy accordingly. That would significantly reduce the risk to his unit. Keiichi understood the concern but had no solution. Space-time ninjutsu was exceptionally difficult to master. It required an immense amount of knowledge. Even he wasn't sure he could learn it. The second Hokage had left behind research notes, but all the actual formulas and jutsus had been confiscated. So, he had never even seen them. But this thought triggered an idea. Keiichi glanced at Might Dewey but held back his words. The third Hokage, experienced as he was called, immediately noticed Keiichi's hesitation. Dewey, you've worked hard to get here. From now on, help us deal with Hidden Stones Village. Yes. Rest well. We'll need your strength in the coming battles. Yes, Hokage-sama. Might Dewey's fighting spirit burned brightly. The third Hokage smiled, watching him leave. Then he turned to Keiichi. Go on, speak your mind. Hokage-sama, may I examine the mutually multiplying explosive tag jutsu? Keiichi asked. This was another jutsu invented by the second Hokage. It allowed a single explosive tag to summon additional tags in an endless chain reaction. The explosion was devastating, so powerful it could easily backfire on the user. For that reason, it was classified as a forbidden jutsu. But there was another reason. This jutsu requires pairing with another forbidden jutsu. What are you trying to do? The third Hokage's expression darkened. I have no interest in the other jutsu. But this one. I believe I can combine it with a special secret jutsu I learned. Keiichi raised his hand. Several explosive tags flew from his sleeve, transforming into small paper birds. They hovered in midair. Then, with a mere thought, they morphed into stones and more birds. Even sensory ninjas would struggle to detect them. The third Hokage's eyes widened in astonishment. After a long pause, he spoke. This jutsu. Apologies, Hokage-sama. I learned it through observation. The person who developed it is actually on friendly terms with us, so. Keiichi didn't finish, but the third Hokage understood. A powerful individual. A secret jutsu unknown to him. Who else could it be but one of Jiraiya's students? The third Hokage shook his head. I'm not asking you to share it. But I need to know, what's the range of your control? Mutually multiplying explosive tags are incredibly dangerous. The range is quite far. I haven't tested the limit, but it's definitely safe enough. Keiichi added, besides, I don't intend to learn it directly, I'm just using it for reference. I'll modify the jutsu so that none of the summoning elements left behind by the second Hokage are activated. Ahem, that's not what I meant. Alright, give it a try first. If you can learn it and prove you can use it safely, I can authorize the use of 1/3 of the camp's explosive tag supply for you. The third Hokage was not stingy. 1/3. It might not sound like much, but that was actually a considerable portion of the entire Western camp's stockpile of explosive tags. Of course. When broken down into actual tags, the quantity was still quite limited. After all, those things were ridiculously expensive. Thank you, Hokage-sama. Alright, go find Tsunade yourself. I know you two can communicate via Katsu. But Keiichi, that jutsu is absolutely off limits. The third Hokage's face was stern. He was already heartbroken over Orochimaru's tendencies. The last thing he wanted was for Keiichi to get lost in researching forbidden jutsu. You're overthinking it. Keiichi sighed. Reanimation jutsu? He had no interest in that whatsoever. The third Hokage nodded. He had only said it as a precaution to prevent Keiichi from straying down the wrong path. Keiichi left the tent and immediately contacted Tsunade. At first, Tsunade refused, but when she learned that Keiichi had mastered the paper jutsu and had the third Hokage's approval, she retrieved the scroll of seals from where the Hokage had told her and transcribed the mutually multiplying explosive tags jutsu for him. However, she gave a strict warning, once read, it had to be destroyed. After obtaining it, Keiichi carefully read through it twice before burning the scroll. The principle behind the mutually multiplying explosive tags was self-replicating summoning. The challenge lay in two aspects: first, the summoning formula itself, and second, executing the summoning sequence in rapid succession. There was no denying it, Tobirama Senju was an absolute genius. He had gone to great lengths to guard against the Uchiha. Kleichi couldn't help but feel impressed after reading through it. Given the vast amount of knowledge he had acquired from the system, learning the mutually multiplying explosive tags was not difficult. Tweaking the jutsu took a bit more effort, but he managed to refine it relatively quickly. The real challenge, however, was integrating it with his paper jutsu. The risk level of this combination varied drastically, it all depended on the number of explosive tags available. Even he couldn't fully gauge its power or effectiveness. After learning it, he snuck off to test it in secret. The combination of paper jutsu and the mutually multiplying explosive tags did indeed pose some issues. The farther the explosive tags were from Kleichi, the greater the summoning delay. Even though the delay was minimal, on the battlefield, even a slight lag could give the enemy enough time to react. Still, no jutsu was perfect. There was no helping it. After multiple tests and reaching a point where further refinements were unlikely, Kleichi set aside the research for now. The priority was practical application. He reported his findings to the third Hokage and secured his promised share of the explosive tag stockpile. At that moment, the flying thunder god kunai that the Hokage had been keeping nearby suddenly reacted. A small toad was summoned. It looked around in confusion before finally focusing on the third Hokage. Once it regained its bearings, it spoke. "Are you the Hokage? My name is Kazekage. Minato sent me to establish contact. Where is Minato now?" The third Hokage's eyes lit up. Minato was as reliable as ever. "I'm just a toad, so I can't say for sure where he is. But he told me to deliver this map to you." Kazekage opened his mouth and spit out a scroll. "Kleichi, come take a look." The third Hokage immediately unrolled it. Kleichi glanced at it, and in his mind, Minato's current location became clear. They had already reached the eastern border of the Land of Grass. Chapter 134, A Grand Performance. This position. Is Minato planning to cut through the Land of Grass's border and strike from behind Onoki? Kleichi pondered for a moment. No passage through Hidden Waterfall Village. Hidden Waterfall Village was the only nation outside the 5 great countries that possessed a Jinchuriki. Requesting passage from them at this time would be impossible, they wouldn't grant it, and worse, it might lead to intelligence leaks. It didn't take much thought for Kleichi to understand Minato's reasoning. After a brief contemplation, he said, "Should we launch a raid on Hidden Grass Village to draw their attention and create a diversion for Minato's forces?" The third Hokage fell silent for a moment before saying,